Alright, good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:01. Ask if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Minutes of October 16th, 2019. What is the wish of the board?
Moving as written.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright. So next is public comments. For the new faces in the audience, we always like to hear from people. Public comments is a time when you can talk to us. It's typical for the board to not respond, to just hear what you have to say. So I ask if you do have a public comment to say who you are and then state your piece so the board can hear you. Any public comments?
Okay, so Catherine Dill. So a couple things. We have one, I'd like to present to the board a letter that was written by some parents in the 6th and 7th grade to Principal Withy and to Ms. Sherman, the superintendent. So we can have that expressing some of our concerns with the probation policy as well as the homework. And would like to request consideration from the board to look at the probation policy for students as well as the homework policy. One of the things that I know is causing a lot of stress for students is the homework is turned in on time, then handed back and counted as a missing until it is made perfect, it feels like. So it's not 100% when it's handed in, it gets turned back to students. Gets counted as a missing and gets counted against them when it comes to looking at probation and all of that, a number of missings that they have in a class. Adds to the anxiety level for students, adds to anxiety at home. Looking at the number of missings, like I thought you turned that in on time, I did, why does it show as a missing? You know, and there's nothing in ALMA that says that it may say it was turned back for corrections, but it still shows as a missing. Very much a struggle with the system. I know one of the other things that I learned yesterday, so we've been preached to go to ALMA. ALMA has all your answers, that's where you find all your information. As I learned yesterday in my very short parent-teacher conference, because we were only afforded 10 minutes, where only 2 of the 5 teachers actually showed up, is that Google Classroom is where all the feedback is provided. So the fact that we have to use ALMA, Google Classroom, and Remind in order to understand what our children are doing and where things stand. Very frustrating. I have no ability to check any of those programs at work. The Navy doesn't recognize them, they're not trusted sites. Sorry. So I can't check any of that, and checking it on an iPhone, ALMA is not iPhone friendly at all. Very difficult to navigate through the system and look at anything on an iPhone. Other things is we have brought up to administration, the Principal Withy and Mr. Greaves, and pretty much are stonewalled. And I've been told that it's the kids' fault, and parents aren't involved enough. And that's very frustrating, and not working with us, trying to understand, creating a lot of anxiety. So my daughter ended up on probation, and rather than trying to work with her, get her work done, get her up to speed, I had to spend all of my energy convincing her to come to school. Because at that point, she gave up. She didn't want to come, doesn't want to be a part of it, and so instead of trying to get caught up in the work, understand what we're missing, what areas we're struggling in, get help in that, all of my attention and focus went to convincing her to come to school. And so that is causing more anxiety from her, falling more behind, and creating more stress. And she no longer wants to be a part of the community of the Deerfield Community School, no longer wants to partake in any of the community activities here at school because, well, I'll be put on probation and I can't participate. So I think it takes students away from that. So a lot of the parents are feeling that the administration is not working with them with regards to the probation policy, understanding what the policy is. So one of the requests is for the school board to look at the policy for homework, for probation, and understand what that is. So that was a lot of the concerns from families. I do have, so another parent who sent, and I'll hand this over to you guys, their concerns very opposed to the probation policy. Don't believe that we'll get very far working with the principal, and we should schedule a meeting with the superintendent. But wanted to bring it to the board first. Stating, and this from another parent, saying that the probation policy affects all children, even those that are not on probation. By way of example, from the school play last year, suffered significantly because of students being on probation and unable to participate when everyone else is showing up to practice and they're missing key folks. So everyone's suffering the consequences of children being on probation. It also singles them out because then you know who all of the folks are. Doesn't allow kids to work as a team and honor commitments in regards to team and things like that. So trying to teach students obviously how do you honor a commitment if you're getting pulled off to be on probation. It unnecessarily stigmatizes children into believing that they are not smart. When an extracurricular sport or activity is involved, it becomes abundantly clear which child is frequently on probation, discloses private information. Also, depriving a child of recess and fresh air is not a good solution under any circumstance. Children are leading more and more stressful lives. They need recess time to unwind, interact with peers. In addition to the emotional aspect that recess helps to fulfill, it also is abundantly clear that children are becoming severely overweight, and depriving kids of an opportunity to get fresh air and exercise is only going to contribute to the sedentary lifestyle. So, separately from another parent.
We typically do ask that public comments are about 5 minutes per person.
Okay.
So if you have anything to add,
I think I have one other thing that I totally forgot. Okay. What I got.
okay.
So, I don't know, the other thing, could we get on a school board agenda item? Would that be something that the board can put on a future agenda item to discuss?
If the board decides to put the policy onto an agenda to discuss it, it'll be public knowledge, but we haven't done anything at this point.
Okay. Others would like to provide their 2 cents?
Tina, safety there. I haven't had the experience that a lot of other parents have had where they're saying that administrators have been helpful or the teachers haven't been helpful. My experience so far, my son's been in 6th grade, and the policy when my daughters were here, I think it was different because I don't remember this kind of struggle when they were here. We didn't use Alma when my daughters were here. This is new to me this year. What I'm finding with Alma is it's frustrating as a parent to see that your child has missing assignments, but they're not really missing. They've handed them in on time, but because he made mistakes on them, he's getting them handed back and being told that they're now missing still. That's frustrating as a parent. I'm fighting with my child at home, no, you have missing assignments, and he's saying, no, I've corrected them, it's just not in Alma yet. So that's frustrating as a parent. I haven't had an experience with the probation piece of it yet. But it is frustrating to see a missing assignment when he's handed it in on time. So if Alma's not working for us, maybe there's something else that does. Maybe they can change this program. I don't know what could be done to fix this, but it's clearly not suiting a lot of our needs because a lot of parents are struggling with this and the kids are frustrated. My son is like, why am I even trying? He's actually said, I feel like I'm being punished for making mistakes. I feel like I'm being punished for making a mistake when that's how kids learn. Kids learn by making mistakes and having it explained, and it's not right to punish them just for learning, you know. So that's my thoughts on it and feedback.
Any other public comments?
I'm Angel Paradise. My daughter is also in 6th grade, and we don't have an issue with probation, but we have an issue with if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And there's a lot of anxiety and stress at home, and she will hunt me down and check this because if it's not 100%, I'm going to get a missing, and I don't want to miss this or that. She started fall cheer, not for the school, but outside of the school, and when it came up for winter, she said, I can't because I'm afraid to fall behind. And I was like, but you're doing all of your work. And she said, well, what if I need more time for my work? And that being her only extracurricular activity, I said, you go do your extra thing, you're passing in all of your stuff, I'm okay, we'll figure out how to understand this and make this work. So she had one missing, and it really was missing. It said it was a science choice, and she chose not to do it, but she didn't realize it was a choice between two papers. So she is passing everything in and getting it done, but it's the stress. When she starts her homework, it's usually tears or throwing pencils, and I'm sure all of her teachers that have had her in the past are shocked because that's not her personality. She's very shy and fun. That's just my, and we don't understand Alma either. I mean, she's very communicative with me, and she tells me exactly. So I just talk to her, and we look at her Alma together, and I don't really look at her.
Any other public comments?
Nicole Galentine, my son is in 7th grade. We have also experienced issues with missing assignments. My husband and I sit with him at night doing homework. So we are diligent in doing it. So for us to log in at Alma and see that he's got all these missing assignments, there's just a lot of confusion around them. And he's like, he tells me, I did it, I know he did it, I sat with him while he did it. Then he explained to me that, well, sometimes if there's math homework on paper, he has to pass it in, but then also check in Google Classroom to check off that it's been turned in, even though he's already physically turned in the paper. So having all of these extra steps is just causing a lot of confusion. And we're confused at home with Alma because it says, you know, you've got these missing assignments, what's going on. We're very focused on school first. He was put on academic probation 2 weeks ago. We told him that until this gets fixed, that he's not allowed to play outside of school. He's not involved in school sports right now, but we told him that he's not allowed to play for First United, which he's very upset about. And then I find out that the assignments aren't actually missing. They were turned back to him to be graded again or fixed to make sure that they look perfect. Which I feel is a struggle for him at home.
Am I allowed to talk for
Is there anyone else? If there are people who have not spoken, I'd prefer if there's anybody else who would like to speak first time before we get to the second. Sure.
Travis McCoy. I've been through this. I'm glad that I can see all these parents here. It's the first time I've seen this one. Anyway, I've been through this already with my son who's now in 9th grade. And now I have a student in 6th grade, and I'm seeing polar opposite. The differences are amazing. Connor, my oldest went into 6th grade, and within a month he was on academic probation. Never got up. He never saw, I think he saw 3 school dances in 3 years. In 2 years. In 3 years he saw probably 3 dances. Baseball season was canceled. They didn't want to play sports because he was afraid of being on probation. Basically, I've heard the same thing from a lot of parents about this problem, and I've been, it's probably a couple of years ago that we were having the same conversation, different administration, same basic problem, and I see that really nothing has changed. It might be a little bit worse now, actually. Thankfully, my sixth grader he's doing fine. He doesn't mind doing his homework. He says the work's actually kind of easy, which doesn't fare well for his older brother. But I am seeing some of the repercussions that my older son was afraid of. My youngest doesn't want to go on a sixth grade field trip. He's afraid that he's either going to be in trouble and not be allowed to go, or he's going to be stuck with a teacher because he doesn't pay attention. I think that we need to look at this policy again. I know that the policy was intended to best suit the students and figure out where they needed the extra help, but I haven't seen that second half of it, where a student passes in a math assignment, just say math for an example, because there's a lot of math assignments. Passes in his math assignment, he's got a few wrong. He's handed back that paper, and honest to God, he's told to figure it out. He's not told, well, let me see where you're going wrong. Can you sit down and help him? I help him with his math. Makes me look like an idiot. I can add, subtract, multiply, divide, have a slight grasp of algebra, but I look stupid because I have no clue why we're using underlines and boxes and circles and stuff in sixth grade, but that's on me. I haven't learned that math system yet. I sit down and I help him, and I say to him almost every time, did you not go over this in class first? He says, no, we went over our math homework last night in class. And then they assign new homework. So it seems like they're trying to limit they're expected to learn on their own. So if they're expected to learn on their own, and when that paper's handed back, and there's the answers that are wrong on it, there needs to be that support in place to help him figure out what's going on. I'm not seeing that part of it. So I would think that it's time to really look at this policy for all of these reasons. But most of all, because our students are suffering, and it's not one or two, and we all know this. I think one of the last times I was here, it was because like 75 or 80% of the class was on academic probation. They were just, they canceled the rest of the baseball season. That to me, it's unacceptable. You can't have that many kids on probation and still say it's the kid's fault, or it's the parents' fault for not being involved. At that point, it's the teacher's fault. Now, when I used to come to these meetings, I expected, we had a new administration. I thought maybe things would change a little bit. I always thought maybe there's just too many chiefs, not enough Indians kind of deal. But I guess we're still in the same spot. So I think the school board should take the responsibility here and really look into this, and know that a lot of these public forums can tend to devolve into something that's more riotous than beneficial. We've seen it in the past, but I think it's kind of necessary because there's a lot of parents out there saying the same thing. And I want to thank all the parents that are here for actually coming out and saying something. But I would also say that the best thing to do is probably talk to the parent teachers, or talk to the students' teachers, and stay in contact with them. School can only do so much, but as parents, we do have that right to talk to the teachers and find out what the actual situation is. This is about it. Thank you all for your time.
Anyone else?
Kevin Virgil, McCarran Road. Question, I guess, maybe, and another thing. So, typically I don't speak to my kids. I like my kids to speak for themselves, but they're at home doing homework and other things. We're getting a lot of reports back home that a lot of recesses are being canceled because there's issues with lining up, being quiet, in a timely fashion, for recess, and, you know, I only know what I'm told, right? I'm not there to see it, but it's a select few kids, they're causing the issue, and canceling recess for entire classes, not grades, right? And that's an issue. So, came to parent-teacher conferences. I have to admit I was concerned about the 10 minutes and the limit of the 10 minutes. It was better than I thought. Got a nice little pamphlet about developmental stages in children, right? And my kids read through that before I could, so they gave me the synopsis. And so, come to find out, kids from like 4th grade to 8th grade are full of energy. And if you don't let them burn that energy off in a constructive way, it comes back in a negative way. And all the research I've ever seen is from 8th grade down, more recess is a lot better than less recess. So I'm going to encourage the admin to take a look at that. Kids need to be getting out of this building, getting some fresh air, getting some exercise. And if there's a couple of kids that can't, you know, quite make the bar, then maybe they're the ones that are to be grabbed by the neck and not the whole group go down with them. So that's thing number one for my daughter, from her, not really me. When I hear this, I have to wonder if this isn't a data entry nightmare for our teachers. Right? Our teachers, I know our teachers are working their butts off, right? I get that. I know they're doing a good job. I don't know what their opinion of Alma and Google Classroom and all the data entry that has to be accompanying, you know, they have, their frustration is clear. I have to wonder if the faculty is not under the same type of burden. So that's just sort of the little comment. The real reason I came here tonight, though, you guys are picking up the budget, right? And we always hear the refrain at some level or another that we're not fully funding public education, right? And so maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. So my question is, if we're not, where are we not, and by how much? Right? That's if you believe we are not fully funding public education in Deerfield, the question becomes, where are we underfunding and by how much? And I get that the board has a responsibility to a lot of stakeholders to put together a budget that they believe can pass at the ballot box. Your budget, the administration's budget, goes to the school board. The school board's budget goes to the MDC. The MDC's budget goes to the deliberative session. The deliberative session budget goes to the voters. The MDC has equal, if not more, weight on the budget. But if they don't know where things are underfunded, and at least some order of magnitude how much, they can't make effective changes to the budget. And I get it's your recommended budget, it's what you recommend. So I've challenged you at least 1 year, maybe 2 years now, this might be the 3rd year in a row. Maybe you want to consider crafting parallel budgets. The school board recommended budget that you believe covers the necessities and can pass at the ballot box. But a second budget that shows where things could use more funding if funding was available, and for what causes those things would fund. So for me, like when I go walk around, not this year because we didn't go walk around, but last year, you know, when I was in the room, the condition of the books in the room, the reading books, the literature, was pretty ragtag, right? It's pretty crappy. It could use some update. Spending money to buy quality literature for kids to read, I'm all on board with that. That's something defensive. So I'm going to challenge you again, right, as you go through the budget process, to always be asking yourself, are we fully funding public education in Deerfield? If not, where and by how much? So that those things can be articulated as you discuss the budget, articulated again as the NBC discusses the budget, articulated again at the deliberative session, so that we can make a good, informed decision. Right? So no other district has done that. I know it's a high bar, I get it, but I really think there would be
true value in that exercise for everybody in this community to really be able to wrap around where we are.
Any other public comments? All right. Yes, go ahead. Sure.
I remember what I forgot. So my other thing this was with regards to essentially, and this is more for the board for when planning the calendar for next year, in regards to having to take off the 2 days for parent-teacher conference, and at the middle school level only being afforded a 10-minute conference to be able to discuss how your child's doing with your teacher. I got 20 minutes with one third-grade teacher for my son. So having parents having to take 2 additional days off in order to provide, they have to figure out some sort of childcare, daycare for their kids, and having to take a day off from work for the parent-teacher conference day was another thing. So I know it's something new we tried this year. I'm not in favor of that. I don't know what the teacher's opinion of that is, if it works better for them or not, but I just feel it's an additional burdensome and extends the school schedule, the school year, by having these additional days.
Any other public comments? Yes.
I'd just like to echo that same sentiment. My daughter's absolutely ridiculous. I didn't go. Going to conference with my kids' teachers and we'll get them all together and we'll talk. And then actually take the time to figure out what's going on. 10 minutes.
Okay, excellent. So I'd like to thank everybody for your respectful comments. We definitely hear you. I believe the administration is going to talk this evening in regards to Alma, and am I off base on saying that? Or? So under the principal's report, if you would like to stick around for our 3-hour meeting, you're welcome to do so. Next, we move on to agenda review. I'm skipping over consent items because it was put in incorrectly, so consent items should actually be C. Are there any consent items to add?
Yes, we need to add 1 consent item,
Okay.
and we need a non-public under smaller C.
Okay. I would also like to suggest to the board that we move the Concord High School report up to between D and E. So as the high school students have some tests tomorrow, I want to get out of here with study. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else on agenda review? All right. North Branch Construction, Savage and Mr. Campbell. Hi. Good evening. Come join us.
Thank you for having us.
Before we get started, there's one other agenda thing I wanted to add on, is the JJIB athletics policy, because Cindy wanted to talk to that. Can we put that under policy number 6? Is that okay with everyone?
She's also going to talk about the after-school space.
So if I can get started for you folks, I know you have a long agenda, and quite honestly, our agenda item, we were asked to come to speak to folks to help with kind of just educating what we know about the different delivery methods for construction projects. I'm Joe Campbell, president of North Branch Construction. I'm here with Amanda Savage, our business development manager, who set this up.
Yes, Patty reached out to me in regards to, because we have done this first in similar situations for other school boards and actually in many cases for building committees. We understand that we do this all day long, but that, and to us, it's frequent that we speak about different construction methods and what is to be ahead of your project. We understand that your school is going to potentially need an addition. You guys are busting at the seams. People are working out of closets.
It's on modular classrooms.
Yeah, so what we've been asked to do is really just to educate. We're not here to try to sell North Branch other than we would what we would like in return, and to be completely transparent, is when you do get to that place and that time, that we would have the opportunity to assist and maybe we can have that opportunity to be invited to the process. But this is something that we do quite frequently. We've done North Branch, and to give you a really quick glimpse of who we are a construction management firm that's been in business for about 61 years in the state of New Hampshire, and we're based out of Concord. We've had a lot of experience, as you see in your packet, we've passed around, that shows you that we've done a lot of school, public and private, elementary to high school to CTE programs. And what we can offer is really just assistance at this point in the process for you guys, and some education. So in that, I put together for you guys just an explanation, and what we can do is do a brief overview of the different methods of construction that you could consider, because each method is going to possibly be the right one, the right fit for you. But it's good to be educated and to understand what processes are available for you as a school board, and eventually once you form the building committee to make those educated decisions. And we'd be happy to assist as phases move on, to speak to them. So if I may, just the overview of the three methods of construction delivery: stipulated sum, construction management, and design build. And what I'm going to also offer is really for Joe to get into the weeds, or maybe even speak more on a more technical level than myself, because for what I do, I like to do the opportunity to bring together, but then when it comes to the real nitty-gritty, I find that
Passing the buck.
Exactly.
So, as contractors, we use a lot of acronyms, so please, this would be more comfortable for me to make this a two-way conversation, so stop me, and if at any point I'm getting too into the weeds, because you guys have such an extensive agenda, just tell me to move along, like you get it. And we purposely printed these for you folks, so you could have them and reference them, and I hope it is useful for you folks moving forward. So, school projects, there's many different types of construction projects, but school projects are unique where the students need to come back to school each year, and so there's a very limited timeline a lot of times to complete renovations, additions, or what have you. That's not to say we complete many projects that have phases that are completed while school's still in. However, the reason I bring it up is because of the complexities of a school project and having to take into account that maybe testing going on, or the safety of the students and faculty and staff, etc. I ask you to consider that when you're putting some thought into these different delivery methods, because they do have an effect, okay? So, turning to the first page, stipulated sum. My copy actually says design, bid, build, because that's kind of the architects or the industry standard term for it, but I refer to it as stipulated sum. And essentially that method, this first page shows kind of the relationship between the owner, the architect, in this case the general contractors, subcontractors, and design consultants. And what the arrows represent is the contractual agreements and how correspondence kind of flows between them. Turning the page is a description of the process. Basically, the owner is hiring under the stipulated sum or design, bid, build method. The owner is hiring the design team, and they're working with the design team solely through a process to complete what we would call the project documents. And it's a real thick set of plans, and then a spec book that's really fantastic reading. I'm being sarcastic. It's a real bore, but it gets really down to the nitty-gritty. And in that scenario, you end up paying your design team a premium because they have to get all the information into the documents to be able to then go out and get hard bids from the contractors. The low bid contractor under this scenario is ultimately awarded the project. That contractor on bid day is soliciting bids from all types of subcontractors, some of which we have never even met before or heard of, that maybe found out about the job from press or what have you. So the contractor's in a scenario where they may be carrying a low bid that we don't even know on bid day whether or not that particular subcontractor is qualified, which as a business owner gives me a little bit of anxiety. 80% of our business is construction management, so we tend to move into that direction. But that's
construction management is kind of soup to nuts, right?
I will get there. It's I leave that as the cherry on top.
Okay.
So I just wanted, because as me, as being someone who's not as technical as Joe, as what he's saying, and the way I translate it a lot of times is because it's stipulated something, you have to put it out there as a public way so anyone can answer to the solicitation.
If we don't carry that low bid too,
Yeah.
of a potentially unqualified sub, we potentially won't get the job because our competitor may be carrying that low number. Just as an example.
So so stipulated sum, it's all about the numbers and not so much about a preferred subcontractor, that we have a built-in relationship. That does not to say that the lowest bid wouldn't be someone we've already worked with and trust. And that's just a decision because that's to be made and to be considered if this process or this method is chosen. And that's just to kind of sum it up and I say layman's terms.
There's also less flexibility during construction because the contractor is trying to get it done as soon and as aggressively fast as possible because a dollar saved is a dollar earned for that contractor, which time is money for us in our industry. So there's a real push, and not to say that there's a less of a sense of team atmosphere in terms of at the meetings, and there's more change orders because if a single screw is missing in the documents, you're going to the budget, you're going to get a change order for that missing screw, per se. So we'll get into how that doesn't come into effect with the other delivery methods. Turn the page.
So, you kind of just hit on one of them. The design builds typically where that you die for change orders.
Design bid build, which is different than design build.
Okay. So, on that design bid build, when we're looking at that process, it is the devil's in the details, obviously, with.
We own artwork. We're contractually tied with those documents, and any mistakes or omissions by the design team is a change order.
And so we initially would be, in that process, we're initially contracting with the design team.
Correct.
And so your timetables for a process is you probably have about a year or so developing that bid package.
Yeah. Ideally, a lot of times it's less than that, just because that's the.
Okay. And then another, say, a year or so worth of time and project start after that. So you're looking at a multi-year process to get your shovel ready.
I don't think it's that long, but I will talk about some of the durations and try to give some advice there. And I have another document that I can share as well.
Okay.
I think I covered the next page with some of that. Pros, I think I covered that. And the cons. One pro or one advice, should you decide to go to the stipulated sum method, you could have an RFQ round, request for qualifications, and you could solicit qualifications from qualified firms. So you only have a short list of 3 contractors that you know who, no matter which of the 3 get the job, that they're at least qualified to do it. So that would be a recommendation under that scenario, and something we typically see. Any questions on the stipulated sum method before I move on? If you can tell, I don't like that method. But in fairness, I mean, there are tax dollars at play. All our state work is stipulated sum. A lot of our municipal work is, but a lot of our municipal work is also CM. You have that right. Most school projects are construction management. Because of the time constraints and because the school and building committee need that flexibility of having a team member that can clutch and shift, even if it's going to cost the contractor or the project money, because things change. Design, so moving on to construction management's next. I'm sorry, I skipped over one, didn't I?
No. On the
Mine's different, sorry. All right, construction management. So I like to relate construction management. I grew up playing on my high school hockey team, and I'm all about team. And that's how I see construction management as your contractor, or even if I'm in the position of being your project manager. I really see it as I'm your advisor. I do all the legwork. I come to the meetings with options, and we make decisions together as a team. Under the scenario of a construction manager, the owner has a separate contract with the architect and the construction manager, 2 separate contracts, just like the stipulated sum. However, the real difference is we're brought in early on when the design is just getting started, and we're able to offer our input on cost. There's three levels of design: there's schematic design, design development, which think of it as the documents are about 50% complete, and then there's construction documents. That's the set of plans that I'd go and get a building permit with, or we'd actually reference to build. So during this process, you have the ability to have your contractor price the job 3 times. So in a scenario where at design development we're over budget, or the team's project target budget, the design team can make modifications to the documents prior to going to construction documents. In the stipulated sum method, you go right to the construction documents, and that's the first time that you're getting the price. And if you're over budget, you're going to pay your design team in that scenario to design it again. So I feel that as a construction manager, we offer our biggest expertise and most value during what we call that pre-construction phase. We're at the meetings, we're going through program requirements, we're going through, what's the desired checklist, what's the space needs, and we're able to offer our expertise on different material types, and all that gets incorporated into the documents. So and we usually work for a very small fee during that phase, but it's well worth it, in my opinion, in my biased opinion.
If you don't mind me asking,
no, please.
Can you ballpark what a small fee means?
It depends on the project. So how we look at it is labor hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we just submitted on the Rumney Elementary School project. It's a $5.5 million project. We put the 2 additions on, and in that scenario, it was a $5,000 fee. So when you start thinking about, wow, this is a $5.5 million investment, and again, I'm biased, but I feel that $5 grand is a small portion to make sure that you have a contractor with you all along the way, saying, hey, helping you steer the ship, basically. So, I'm on the description page. It gets into the weeds. Please jump in, Amanda, if I miss things. It talks about a guaranteed maximum price. So how our contract works, now stipulated sum I mentioned earlier, if I save $1, it's $1 in my pocket as a business owner. If I use a lesser material and I save $1, it's $1 in my pocket as a contractor. Under construction management, and the books are completely open. So I'll be sharing everything from the sub bids to material invoices, everything. It's all open book. And we work straight a guaranteed maximum price, which we use the term GMP. And within that, with the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price is basically that 3rd estimate that we talked about. And that number becomes an exhibit to our contract, and we work underneath that project budget, if you will, and there's one single line item in there called a contingency. Now, as the owner, no matter what delivery method, you'll have a contingency on your side for unforeseen change orders or what have you. But this contingency, that screw example I used earlier, that's for things like that. Maybe we carried a low bid subcontractor that goes out of business or no longer is available to do the work, and we have to pay up to that next subcontractor. That would be a scenario where we use that contingency. So it really gives some flexibility. It gives, you're able to go to the taxpayers with a number that you really know that you'll complete the project under. And the reason for that is if we go over the GMP, that comes out of our pocket as the contractor. So does that make sense to folks?
Yeah.
And it's a team approach, as I mentioned earlier.
contingency usually around 10% on a project like this? Or?
It depends on the level of completeness of the documents. I mentioned previously that you pay the architect to get the documents 100% under construction, under stipulated sum.
Yeah.
In this scenario, I've seen projects where the documents get to 80%, I've seen the documents get to 90% complete, and the contingency is adjusted based on that. It's never over 10%. I would say it's hard for the contingency amount is established at the time we present the GMP estimate. We can't tell you up front because we don't know what the quality of the documents are until we get there. But it's an amount that as a team we agree upon together to cover the project and everybody involved. The owner's contingency, I will say, is typically 7% of the overall cost. And ironically, soft costs, which you're paying your architect and they have all their consultants, is typically around 7 to 9% of the project cost. That's how architects look at it. Is that helpful?
Yep.
So pros, on the pros page, I already mentioned that it's a team approach. The owner has a real high degree of control. So in this scenario, the district may have an local electrical contractor that came in second, but has been servicing the school, knows the school inside out. Well, you folks would have the right to say, hey, we have a higher level of comfort, we think it's a more qualified bid based on their knowledge of our building, we'd rather go with that contractor, North Ranch, and we plug that contractor into the estimate. So my point is you have flexibility where under the stipulated sum method, you really don't have much say, if any, as to who's working in the building. The construction manager is selected based on qualifications rather than solely on low bids. In some instances, because there's less risk to us as a contractor by having a contingency, we're able to work for a lower fee. So a lot of times under the stipulated sum method, we're making about 10% on our bottom line, but on other projects such, it's hard to give you folks fee idea. But say it's a $5 million project, our fee in that scenario is probably 5%. Where if it was stip sum, I would put 10% on the bottom line. So there's a savings to the taxpayer there, and we're able to do that because we're limiting our risk by having that contingency. If that makes sense. Here, pros continue. This talks about just kind of some of the different other services we provide during the pre-construction phase. Say a project at a schematic or the design development level is running over budget. We have an industry term called value engineering, and that's not the leading scope. It's maybe changing the type of flooring for a flooring that's less expensive, maybe different ceiling tiles, maybe re-looking at the building structure to frame wood versus steel. Those are just services we provide before you spend big design dollars for your design team to redesign. That makes sense. Skimming over some of this stuff. You have, in terms of schedule, school, I mentioned previously that school projects are complex. There's typically a lot of phasing. You're phasing the interior renovations. You're phasing when the additions are happening. You have say under the construction management method of being a part of, determining that phasing and making sure it works for the faculty and staff and your program. So that's a huge asset. There are some cons with construction management. Unless a guaranteed maximum price contract is established, the final cost of construction will not be guaranteed. There is burden in selecting a construction manager that's qualified, so I would suggest that really the qualifications under this particular process, you have to go into it with a mindset that you're going to put in the commitment to really go through a vetted process and have a really well-written RFP, request for proposal, that focuses on qualifications and make sure you're hiring somebody with the experience that is right for your project.
So if you're doing a construction management project, is it you who's here, or do you have a team that you here, or how do you typically do it?
We can talk, no matter what the delivery method is, it's pretty similar, other than the pre-construction period. But every project will be assigned a project executive. A lot of times, it's a principal of the firm or what have you. You would have a project manager, and a project manager is primarily office-based, but all our software is cloud-based, so you can work on projects anywhere. But they're responsible for writing all the contracts, managing the cost of the project. They would typically meet with the subcontractors and the architect and the owner once a week on site. And then on site, we would have a supervisor that's overseeing all the construction work, and their responsibilities of safety, quality control, making sure that it's being constructed for the plans, etc. That's kind of how a team project is structured. And that really is pretty similar on all three methods of the delivery. And then finally we have design build. There's a lot of different construction companies out there. Some of us are structured where we have design in-house. We personally don't have, of our 65 employees, we don't have design in-house. I kind of think of it as I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. Most of our work is solicited to us through architects, or an architect who has been contacted by a school board, and the school board always asks, who's our contractor? Who do you recommend? You know, I want the architect. If I had architecture under my roof, I think my name would be, I would be a competitor to those architects. So we approach the design build where it's typically when the client has reached out to us, the contractor first, and we're being asked, hey, what are the delivery methods? Hey, North Branch, I have complete trust in you. Who do you think we should hire for design team? And we would assist with soliciting up to typically three proposals of design teams that are experienced in your type of project and who, quite honestly, from a personality standpoint, we think would work well with you folks. So the scenario for the owner under this, on this page, is you only have one contract. That's a big difference. The contract's with us, the contractor, or the design builder under this scenario. We would then contract with the architect and the subs. Some contractors, interestingly enough, treat the accounting as closed books under this method. We don't. We take the same approach as CM and make it all open book, just because we ethically feel that's the right way of doing things, and we like the team approach. I think more contractors take our approach than not. So design build, turning the page. Again, we're involved throughout the entire process. We have a little, as the contractor under this process, we have a little more push or pull, if you will, because the architect's working for us, so we can say, no, we want to frame it with wood. We don't care what your opinion is, architect. This is the direction we're heading in, which isn't always in the best interest of the client. However, I think contractors have the right intentions in those scenarios. They might be trying to get the final project to a certain budget, and that is steering it. I'm not going to get into all the weeds here, because I know you folks have a really long evening. Like I said, we'll leave these with you. The pros, I'm on that page. With design build, it's streamlined. You have a single point of contact, so that's kind of nice. You have the potential for the lowest construction cost, but sometimes it's difficult to evaluate. Early contractor involvement is a pro. Construction can be performed in phases. So a scenario where you decide that you want to build the project, we talked about timeline earlier, this tends to have a much quicker timeline, where I would say on average you want to have about 8 months to get the construction documents working with your design team. Let's be honest, you don't always have that. In some scenarios, this could be compressed into a 5-month period. I've seen even quicker. But so that's certainly a pro if time is not on your side. Cons, You really have less checks and balances. Your complete trust is in the contractor, and you don't necessarily have the ability to pick up the phone and after the meeting call the architect and say, hey, that discussion we had today, what's your opinion on that, off the cuff? The architect's kind of in a funny position there where they're working for the contractor, or if it's a contractor that has design in-house, you can't even make that phone call. So that's something that I know if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't feel comfortable with. It really comes down to less control. So that's kind of the different methods in a nutshell. The other things I just wanted to share with you folks is there's a whole bunch of work to be done before you even get to the stage of deciding your delivery method. And there's a bunch of folks out there that are called OPMs, Owner Project Managers. There's some really good ones out there. Let's face it, you folks are great at what you do for a living, or you know education, but construction can be a little scary. It's an unknown, right? But there are professionals out there that you can bring on board for. I feel like they work for practically nothing. I mean, it's anywhere from on a $5 million project, I've seen OPMs as low as $45,000, and it's another partner that helps you along the whole way and can advise you throughout the process. That's on your side of the table. So I strongly advise folks to hire OPMs. And I certainly have a list of qualified OPMs if you guys ever get to that point that I can provide you with. I feel like I've talked a lot, and I don't know if I hope to provide some value.
I mean, if I could throw some questions out there.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much for coming on and talking to us, because, and I'm sure you guys have worked with plenty of school boards in this situation where sometimes the hardest step is the first one, right? It's like, okay, we know we need space. How do you start this process? And so, maybe you give me a little bit of input on is it typically, obviously we're juggling the budgetary need and we need to raise funds to start a project to some extent, whether it's funds for getting design work done. But how do most, what's your experience with the most common ways that you see that first step? Is it okay, we know we need space, we know we need extra room?
Well, us being here, I think you're there. You already know that there's a need, right? So what most folks do is they send out an RFP for what's called a feasibility study. And you may want to even at that point establish somewhat of a core committee. I wouldn't quite call it a building committee at that point, but a committee to help work with the consultant, which is typically an architect. That's a service they provide, a feasibility study, who really do like a broad brush assessment of what your needs are. From there, there's also studies to look at enrollment and what the next number of years enrollment's going to be, because you ultimately need all this information when you're standing up in front of the taxpayers. So you need to vet out all that information and have all the answers if you want your bond to pass. And you got to do the homework, you got to do the legwork. So I think the feasibility study RFP and targeting, you got to work backwards. You know what date your bond votes are every year, right? So you got to target a year and then work backwards.
We haven't had a bond review field in like 20 years.
So, and also when, let's say, and like he said, most of those firms that do the feasibility studies are architecture firms. You're not committed to that architect to be the one that ends up designing the building. It's just they're the one, you're only working with them in the sense of just doing the study, and then there can be a separate RFP for design. And so I just wanted to be clear, so you're not locked in to this one architect just because you've asked them to do the study for you.
And typically the architects brought on board before us, and I actually support that. I've seen that there's a new trend where the RFP for the architect and the contractor are going out at the same time. But I see the architect as, that's somebody that you're going to be married to, no different your contractor, but you want the architect to like whoever you're choosing for the, it's a marriage, it's a team under the under the construction management scenario where I would suggest hiring the architect first. In most cases, the OPM even before the architect, because they'll be able to solicit and help you with writing those RFPs.
Yeah, so we've seen that happen more often. Like, for example, there's a school in Hopkinton, they put an RFP out for the OPM first, the owner project manager, and then following that was the architect, and then following that was the construction manager. But all within a time frame of within about 3 to 4 months. That all those selection processes went out exactly because that OPM is once again has some tools up their sleeve to help with framing the RFP. And there's a lot of templates out there. In fact, Joe's worked on a couple of working groups that help frame up and help for suggestions, for schools that are looking for how do we put this together. We've never written RFP for a building inside, so there are templates out there. There are people.
Has that date already passed for the New Hampshire School Board Association?
Yeah, I believe that and I'm sure you can reach out to Barrett Christina. They recently did a webinar, and it was.
And they sent me a video.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I was part of that working group that put together the materials. I only have one copy, but you'll find leaving it. It may have gotten modified before the actual, but pass that down. There's some front end information in there that I feel is valuable in terms of the OPM and whatnot, and just kind of the different steps. It helps with the timeline. It talks about the timeline. So I'll just leave that with you folks. Sorry, I don't have more copies of it. I brought it for my own reference.
Yeah, it is helpful. So deciding on when the school board wants to go to the bond vote, and like you said, backing it up so that you have enough time to, like, take example, if you're going for a March vote, we would definitely say, oh, you've missed that window if you want to do that.
Hold up.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I think we've already determined that.
Yeah, exactly. So
now we're just really ahead of.
It's good. We're not starting too soon. It's definitely.
Yeah, typically, I would say we're brought on board. You go for the March vote. So typically, we're brought on. In most cases, the November at the latest of the prior year, because there's a lot of work to do, and the design team at least needs 6 months in that process, and we want to be involved during that process to provide value.
And I'm sorry, just a couple. One of the other things that we've been assessing is, so we had an engineering study done on the existing facility. We did a deep dive, and so we know what we have currently. We've done demographic studies as well. So we're trying to we're knocking off some of those pieces, maybe slightly in and out of order, or
that doesn't matter.
But we're trying to harness as much of that data as we can, so we have something concrete to look at. When we start looking at, okay, now we know we need space, what resources are available to really help us figure out, do we need 30,000 square feet, or do we need 50,000 square feet, or 10,000 square feet? And then where do the schools typically, when do they start narrowing into that method? Is a big part of this in figuring how to proceed forward is we're seeing numbers of 300 to plus or minus a square foot to build right now, and a 20,000 square foot addition is going to have a significantly different impact than a 50,000 square foot addition. And so, as you start looking, trying to figure out how you're going to sell this or bring this to the community, at some point we need to start putting some really generalized ideas of, are we looking at a $5 million addition, or are we looking at a $15 million addition? Because where do you find that typically those things start occurring?
So you have a lot of questions in that, but I can address it. Let me try to address it one by one. So the space needs, that is prior. I talked about the 3 phases of design. That's even before schematic. That's you have the architect on board, or maybe it's during the feasibility study that I spoke of, where that's starting the process of talking with faculty and staff, talking with the administration. The demographic study comes into play, but architects think of it as code requires a certain amount of space per body in certain different, whether it's a cafeteria, a gymnasium, or what have you. But classroom's a classroom. There may be direction as to the district's opinion as to what an appropriate size classroom is in terms of number of students. All those pieces come into play, and the architects take all this information from, call it, 10 meetings we had with these folks that are each an hour long, and they start building these boxes. They say, all right, this is for the gym, this is for the library, this is for that. And then they put it all together, and they figure out the flow and the egress, and it just starts to come together. And through that process, they're presenting ideas and some schematic layouts, and you folks will be like, I like that, this should be over here, and it just comes together. So there's some work to be done to know, is it a 50,000 square foot addition or is it 100
And
square
that,
foot?
so that space needs group really, it sounds like an architect is really an integral part of.
That's their specialty, quite frankly. We don't add a ton of value to that discussion. We don't.
Do you know if towns have done needs assessments? Like, have towns done needs assessments where they are trying to look at, like, how can this building best, or addition best, benefit not just the kids that walk in the door, but also if the town has kind of gaps in, like, facilities for other things?
Sure, emergency shelters, we've seen all kinds of things. In terms of, typically it's project specific in terms of the needs, but we've seen some different things, such as like an emergency shelter, as I mentioned. I guess I'm not fully understanding your question.
I'm just wondering if there seems to be kind of a trend that communities are building, maybe not in New Hampshire right now, but the communities are building additions or schools that are more community-based as opposed to just education-based, so that, and our school already is kind of has a 24/7 operations going, because it is kind of the only big building in town. I didn't know if there were people that did a needs assessment in order to try to, if there was like a document or a way that people, kind of, was it a town-wide charrette or something like that?
So under that scenario, now I fully understand your question. I've seen what's called informational sessions where you can invite the public in to get some, where you've already got that consultant on board and they can be a part of it, where you get some feedback from the town as to, giving the taxpayer a voice in the process to say, hey, the seniors need a space, hey, on Thursday nights we really need a conference room, so you could incorporate that in your process, which I think it's all about leading up to the bond and passing the bond. So the projects that do that, I see a higher success rate in passing the bond.
All right.
For sure.
Thank you very much for coming.
Which method would someone work?
Construction management. Yeah.
And
And they had to put a stairwell in the middle of the school. And I tried to talk them out of it, but it was integral to their.
I've been up and down this stuff 1,000.
I was the project manager. So you must know
There's
Lori.
just a beautiful mural on this big wall.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really nice. Yeah, that was actually completed after. It was completed by the students. You probably were.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That was a great project. And we put close to that was a $5 million project. We put close to $3.5 million into place in 3 months, which was it was impressive. We pat ourselves on the back. But no, thank you for inviting us. Hopefully we added some value. We are contractors, so our opinion is biased, but that information you'll find is very industry specific, meaning there's no bias in the handouts.
Thank you very much.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
Thank you.
I hope we're more exciting than the plowing RFP.
Depends if it snows tomorrow or not.
No problem. Have a very nice night.
All right. Concord High School kids, come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
I'll do the flip for you. You want me to flip the slides for you? Yeah.
So for the people, there's a few new faces here. So for the people that don't know who we are, we're the Concord High School student reps. My name's Megan Cox. I'm a senior at Concord High School.
I'm David Andrusakis. I am a junior at Concord High School.
Okay, so we come here every month for one of the school board meetings, and we pretty much explain what has been happening at our school and how the Deerfield kids are pretty much doing there.
So we've got our fall athletics that are coming to their end. Currently right now we've got teams in the playoffs, or they just finished up their playoff season. Our girls field hockey team made it up to the championship game. Unfortunately they did lose to Wyndham. Our boys soccer team got to quarterfinals but lost against Bedford last Saturday. But our girls soccer team pulled out a huge win in double overtime and penalty kicks against Bedford. They will be competing in the semifinals tomorrow, as if the weather holds up. And then the big one is the boys and the girls cross country teams at our school both won the Division I state championships. For boys, this is their third season in a row that they've pulled this off. They just placed third at the Meet of Champions in Nashua, and they will be going to the New England's meet in Wickham Park down in Connecticut this Saturday.
Also goes along with this is winter sports are coming up. The last day to sign up is tomorrow, and I think it was October 22nd. They had their the mandatory winter sports meeting where all the kids have to go to get all the information for the sports that they're planning on playing coming up. I mean, if you can't make it because of some things that are already going on, that's completely fine, but majority of the kids, it was mandatory for them to go. Any Deerfield kids in the picture?
Yep.
A lot of them, actually.
Right.
Ryan Devine, Braden Kearns, Ryan Trislick, and Dave Cook, and the girl Sophie Hawkins.
Awesome.
But yes, that also goes on with winter sports.
So we have the annual NHDA meeting, or NHADA meeting, I should say. So during the month of October, our athletic director goes to the New Hampshire Athletic Director Association meeting. This is where all athletic directors gather up to talk about the year, and awards are generally given out.
This year, the award went to the Bow High School athletic director. So over the course of from September to the end of October, we had our German-American exchange program had their German kids come to our school. So the kids stayed with their partners. So each American student is assigned a German student, and then the German students stay with them at their homes, and then they follow them around at school. So they took a trip to New York City one weekend, and then they did like a lot of activities throughout, like around the month, doing things with all the German students. And the German students would give presentations. They would go to different classes at the high school, and they would present things about like what the German community is like in Germany, or like what they do for education and the extracurriculars that happen there. So our American students, the day after they graduate, will be going to Germany for a month, and they will do the same thing there. I know a few of my friends are in the German exchange program, and they've already started on their presentations that they will be giving to the German students when they go to Germany.
So that happens in June or end of June after they graduate?
Yes.
Are they all senior? Are they all seniors who are doing that?
Not all of them are seniors, but I know majority of them are seniors because seniors get the first opportunity to be a part of this program. So then the other spots that seniors do not want goes to juniors. So it usually happens the day after they graduate. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening this year too.
We've got the blood drive. So the annual blood drive at CHS fell on October 9th. Each year, CRTC, Concord Regional Technical Center, health science students help out with this program. They help out by checking people in, making sure that all the people are alright after giving out blood. The health science kids are able to learn a lot about the medical field and many safety procedures that come with drawing blood, and they get to practice these techniques on dummies.
They're not going to practice on with it.
Last week we had the hypnosis show. This is to raise money for the senior class, all their things that happen at the end of the year, like prom and the cruise. So these are just a few pictures of what happened. It was actually really, really funny. So the students get to go up if they would like. They are picked by pretty much raising your hands first. And the students get to go up and get hypnotized. It worked on the majority of the people. There were a few people it didn't really work on. It's really funny to see some of the people do things. So some of the things the hypnotist had them do was pretend like they were driving, and then they were seeing people, and then they were singing, and then you put the microphone up to their face, so then they would be singing out loud in front of everyone. It was really funny. And then other things he did was like calling out special words, and then kids would do certain things. Like one of the ones I remember was he called out Concord, and one of the kids got up and just started acting like exotic birds, and just made different bird calls. But yeah, it was really funny, and we raised a lot of money from it. So.
Salem Band Show. On the 12th and 13th of October, Concord High's marching band went out to Pickett State Academy for the Salem Band Show. This is a band show where schools from New Hampshire and Maine get to show off all their talents. And what I know, our band did a pretty good job at performing in front of not only all the other bands, but in front of collegiate level recruiters, onlookers as well.
Thank you for watching. Any questions?
Good questions for the Concord kids. Thank you for bringing your presentation.
Yeah, I also had one question though. Also, so our presentations are a lot of just current events going on at Concord High School, and I was wondering if you guys wanted to hear anything specifically from us, because I know current events can sometimes get kind of boring and repetitive.
I mean, current events are great. Student perspective is always super useful.
Yeah. Okay.
So if there's like something that students are experiencing, or something students enjoy, or just that type of, for me, that would be really good.
Okay. All right. Well,
anything else?
Yeah, like even just like as a senior, this is how I'm finding my classes, and this is my experience as a junior, this is what I've been thinking about, and this is the way the school supports my post-grad plan. If not now, and this is
okay.
We do like the current events too.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna keep doing that. I just wanted to know if there was anything else you guys wanted to emphasize. Okay.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you.
Alrighty.
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna email you the presentation.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
We are now on to plowing RFPs. We have two responses, one from East Coast and one from Cole & Sons. East Coast is bidding $13,000 with a loader and truck rate of $150 an hour, and Cole & Sons is bidding $15,750 with a removal rate of 145. So East Coast is who's been doing it for a couple of years. Cole & Sons is new. What is the wish of the board?
Is there a recommendation from the admin if Mike as to what they prefer?
Mike has been very happy with East Coast Signal. If there's a sudden icing situation during the middle of the day, he literally can call him up across the street. He comes within minutes and sands down whatever needs to be done. He's happy with the equipment that he has. I don't know the comparison to the other bid, but he has spoken very highly of East Coast Signals, has been very happy with them over the past couple of years.
So, I guess another question for you here, and this is a slight difference. It looks like we have sand and salt included by Cole, Any opposed?
Are you asking me?
No.
Okay.
Sanding and something.
Yeah. And it looks like, did we change, because in the past, we were doing that as an on-call type of thing. Is that currently the way that East Coast has proposed everything to us?
East Coast is on-call sanding.
Is on-call, so if we look at, do we know what their on-call rate is for sand itself?
I don't have any information.
I can text Mike and see if he can get that information. Trish,
I would have them filed downstairs, like,
okay, do you want us to get that information for you, Mr. Langlois?
Well, the second part of the question becomes, is do you know how many times we've had to call that in? Because that's really part of, if we're gonna wait this, that's part of how we're gonna be waiting the two bids.
Trish is saying not that often.
enough that I have a call for them to come for extra,
Okay,
maybe 2 or 3 times, not sure.
okay.
So there's about a $2,700 difference.
There is, however, one of them is including, sanding and salting, at least as I'm reading it.
All inclusive.
Well, yeah. Salt and pay services, and include shoveling of the ramps and the doorways. Okay, go ahead, reading that correctly.
It looks like there was an email to Mike asking him to confirm the scope of work. So, well, it sounds like he offered that he could price it both ways or omit it with a reference. And let's see what that was done.
So actually, if we're looking at I'm sorry, I'm kind of processing this as where I didn't have a chance to review it beforehand. But if we're looking at Exhibit D from East Coast, it looks like, yeah, 13,000 includes well, I don't know. It says snow plowing and sanding and on-call sanding by DCS personnel, standard de-icing the place and salt. So I just don't know if we're paying for that service or that service is included in that bid. So the second note on it is the shoveling. Is historically the shoveling has not been include right, but on-call is.
The following the district's advertised RFP will be including the cost for on-call or additional sand and salt treatments. This varies from recent years, but we feel we have accounted for any additional costs associated with those requests in our lump sum proposal.
All right, well, if that's the case, then I move to approve these customers.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Cloud.
Did you skip over the consent item?
Did we?
Yes.
I told you it was punchy.
You did.
Sorry about that. I knew it was out of order and I had something to it. So yes, consent of it, is it covered or not?
If you have questions, we could go to non-public, but it's pretty straightforward with the staff request for the early time conflict.
How long is the staff, building staff member? A very long time?
I don't know. A long, very long time, yes.
They come with the previous building?
Yes.
Yes. Sounds like they've served an awfully long sentence.
Does anybody have a problem with that? It's a request for the retirement benefits. That's part of the contract.
It's almost to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that. All right, so now going back into order, after school space. Cindy, is this Cindy or is this Kristen? This is Nate?
Yeah, so this had come up with our last meeting. The question was, the way we left it at our last meeting was about a feasibility study. We asked the school to come back, or admin to come back with an idea about whether anything was feasible or not. That was how we left the last meeting.
We invited Cindy. Yep.
You thought you were getting on that.
This is not for
Yeah, so I guess the question was, what is our current usage after school? We had talked about the use of the cafeteria possibly. We weren't clear on the enrichment program. There were just some uncertainties at our last meeting, so we wanted to check in with the current state of things.
So I think it's pretty similar to last year, as far as the spaces. I didn't bring it up.
I have it somewhere. I'll get it for you.
You know, all the spaces that are used. This, I'll tell you, this week starts, Maggie's kicked out of the gym. She's in the cafeteria 2 days a week. Girl Scouts is there Wednesday, Monday. Boy Scouts is Wednesday. Enrichment's Tuesday, Thursday. Dances are once a month on Friday. So if you specifically about that space, nothing has increased.
Okay.
If anything, it may have increased. We've had a couple other groups that have approached us, community groups, looking for a space in the building to use, like for one was an after-school enrichment art type of therapy class.
Okay.
Another one was an indoor football. They just need space, like that kind of stuff. But they're all
To do talk about plays, not to
so not
play
just
football.
to do football, but to actually have a place
To be clear.
do plays and just do.
So, if I can maybe just interject so that you know what the mindset of the board was, is there's been kind of this continuous, and if anybody disagrees with me, feel free to interject, but there's been a continuous lack of space for Parks and Rec to be able to handle all of our students after school. And the board feels to a certain extent that our students need to have a safe place to go after school, and so what we're really trying to weigh out is what would the ramifications be from a scheduling standpoint if we were to say, okay, we're going to potentially contract or utilize space, and how does that affect other program offerings if we say we're taking the cafeteria for a program. And that's, I think, what we're really trying to do is what would the cause and effect of that be? We know that every square inch of the building is utilized with a certain level of frequency, but I think collectively we felt it was important enough for us to discuss making sure that our students had a safe place to be after school if Parks and Rec couldn't house what we do.
And that, I just want to clarify something first too, because we've gone back and forth about this. So Parks and Rec last year was a staffing issue, not a space issue. Are they now in a space issue, not a staffing issue?
This year it's a space issue. So now it's the understanding of what they've expressed to us is they have 100 students, that's it. Have a nice day. They started the school year with a large number of students on a waiting list. And again, Parks and Rec is in our purview, but they had a large waiting list at the beginning of the school year. We heard from a lot of families where new families into the school that never even had an opportunity to utilize those Parks and Rec services. So that's what we're trying to we're just trying to cause and effect of trying to solve one problem and what is that problem.
In my opinion, the cafeteria is used by a lot of different groups. So if you're going to look to house a program like that, the cafeteria would be, like, we'd be moving lots of different programs.
Can we, what is the process by which these decisions are made? So you're saying that I think you said that a cheer group is moving into I'm sorry, who you said is moving into the lunchroom now?
Well, people ask us, well, we use it for our cheer program because we don't have we don't have school space. They haven't started yet, but
Okay.
those are events. And
Okay.
then Maggie's class. So but the time is a little bit later, but it's going to they're going to overlap with that after school.
But I guess my question then is, so how Maggie's class, I mean, I know she's been using this space at the school for a while, but is there a process by which the school goes through every year when these requests come in, or when you get new requests, what is the process by which you evaluate? I mean, because Maggie's been here the longest, the seniority, or versus potentially an after-school program that would benefit, 100, we're not going to get 100 kids into the lunchroom, whatever a realistic number would be after school, would that benefit more of the community? And so therefore, do we, as part of the school district, evaluate how we use our facilities to consider that or not? I don't know, what is that
Right,
process?
so the process right now is I've never had to approve Maggie's class, you guys did that. So I was told to find space and we did. So that, I don't ever reevaluate her. That was kind of came above me.
Okay.
Which, for whatever, that's not a negative thing, that's just a fact.
Okay.
And then the other programs that come in, I'll go to Brian and Kristen and say, if it's not a DCS directly athletic program, basically, because that's where I start, we go through them and say, they want this space, doesn't work. And most of them are later in the afternoon and evening, except for enrichment and,
I mean, we redid the policies and we ranked in the policy that it goes athletics,
right?
Athletics and school.
Athletics, school, and then Parks and Rec.
So, I know the Girl Scouts they don't use the cafeteria, they use the classrooms down the hall. Boy Scouts, I don't know, I'm not.
Same thing, it depends on the size of the group every year, sometimes they used to have some of the right now, the enrichment Tuesday, Thursday is the most, the enrichment in our cheer program is during the day, during the afternoon, that's the program that we need.
And so for enrichment, is it just one portion of the enrichment program that's in there?
It's the beginning, so it's from dismissal till 3, and then they come back at 4. So, that's not entirely true. A couple of the groups actually use the cafeteria. That's true. Because sometimes classroom space is not conducive to what they're trying to do.
Right.
They need a bigger space. I think we had a fun.
No, go ahead.
I think we had a conversation last year about displacing other groups that are assigned to use the CAP would mean other teachers would not have access to their rooms after school where they need to be. You'd have to move them into classrooms, and that's where teachers are getting their prep work done and finishing up their day. So
I think that we've also had this conversation for quite a few years. So do you want to make a proposal and make a change, or we're
No, I think I want just a current update.
Okay.
And I think that it doesn't sound like I'm not going to make any motions.
Okay. Any other questions? PTO update.
Thank you.
Nothing, unless you have our meetings next Tuesday.
All right.
I didn't even know you were hiding back there.
She's in the company.
You've been hiding behind Brian's shoulders.
We did the Concord High School staff report.
Mr. Flad, that's you. I asked if there was staff, and Mr. Flad jumped.
Awesome. You can tell him all about jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I teach 7th and 8th grade social studies, and we focus on American history. And one of the areas I'd like our students to learn about is using primary source documents. Being able to go back and look at actual documents to help explore history. And a few years ago, we got a grant for a membership to Ancestry Classroom, and recently that was expanded to the whole district. And it seems a shame not to use that. So since the first unit of the year is immigration, I had the students trace their own family trees back and try to find immigrant ancestors. And in the process of that, we found a little soap opera, and I thought I would share that with you tonight. One of our students, she She knew that she had a great-grandmother named Matilda. And the name they thought was Coydon or Codon. And after a lot of searching, we found in the 1930s, could you go to the 1930 census, please? Thank you very much. In the 1930 census, living in, I think, Queens, no, Bronx, sorry, living in the Bronx, we find Alex and Alice Taydon. But by comparing the information that she knew about her great-grandmother Mildred, we were able to pretty much establish that this was the family that we were looking for. Okay, well, she had been pretty sure that her family was from Russia. If you could... sorry. It's okay. I'll tell you what. I'll move it around. Eventually. Okay, we are on the wrong side. Okay, so just hit view. Thank you. And maybe increase it a little bit. Okay, thank you. Did you change the page again? Yeah.
And go to the 1920 census, which you have open, I think, 2 windows over.
Okay.
So what are we looking for?
I was looking for the 1930 census. Do you mind if I sit for a moment? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm
fine.
Everybody else.
I know. I'm kind of the worst. The kids will tell you. My son will tell you.
I did that arrow for a bit.
Yeah, I know.
Picture.
It's a pain in the neck. Okay, so anyway, my student was pretty sure, from talking to her family, from interviewing her grandmother, grandmother would complicate things because she didn't want anyone to know when she was born. So anyway, but eventually we found the family. And the assumption of the family had always been that the family was from Russia. Well, interestingly enough, when they interviewed the family in 1930, Russia was written down, but then it's crossed out and Latvia is written. And what language do you speak? Latvish, which I'm pretty sure isn't actually a language. Okay, and so we've got Alex, Alice, and Mildred. Mildred is 14 at this time. And then the trail goes cold. We can't find anything other than this one record. So the student does a little more searching, and she finds the grave. Okay, well that's nice, I guess. But that was all we could find. And after she left for the day, I was really kind of obsessed with this. Okay, where do we? And then I realized that if you really, really zoom in on the bottom, Alice has her maiden name, Dietzman. Okay, kind of cool. So I looked under Alice Dietzman, and we found her in the 1920 census. Okay, here she's under a different name, Alice Taydon, not Taydon. Again, all this was done, verbally to the census taker, so you get different spellings of different names. Okay, well, it's just Alice. She's the head of the family. Mildred, the daughter, is 4 years old. Okay, so we know that this is the same family. Okay, because the ages match up perfectly. And there's a son, Walter, who we've never heard about, who's 14. Okay, well, where's Alex? Well, if you look, Alice, what's your marital status? D, for divorced. Okay, let's find out some more about Alice. Well, it turns out, where's Alice from? No, she's from Russia. Okay, and what language? What is your native language? Hebrew. Okay, now at that time in the 1920s, no one spoke Hebrew outside of synagogue. It wasn't a commonly spoken, like colloquial language. But that tells us she was Yiddish, so probably, she was Jewish, so probably Yiddish. So the timeline matches up. We don't know for sure. And this is what we talked about in the class. We're taking our best guess. We can't prove this, but the timeline is just about right for Alice to have fled Russia under the pogroms, under the last Tsar. Okay? And she flees with her son, Walter, was that his name? Which, by the way, does not sound like a very Russian name. But Walter. So she has a son. She has to flee Russia, or leave Russia. I'm making it more dramatic by saying flee. She comes to New York, gets married to Alex Tidon. They have their child, Mildred. But at this point, she has divorced Alex. But if you go back to the 1930 census, she's taken them back. And in fact, 30 years later, they're buried together. And so I got permission from this student and from her family to show the rest of the kids and to show you. And I'm showing this, and a couple of the students were very bored by this, but a few were like, "We should make a movie out of this," and they're casting who they would have play it. And I'm using this to show that the historical research that we can have the kids do, if we treat them as historians. I saw a video once of a prize-winning science teacher, an observation in her classroom, and a student asks a question from her during a lab, and she goes, "You tell me, you're a scientist." And that always struck me. You tell me, you're a historian. I guarantee you're the only one to have looked at these records in the last 60, 70 years. Okay? So by looking at these, we get a whole story, and they're starting to see these historical figures as real people. And it's a more dramatic way of using these primary sources. And so we included this. All the students put their family tree information, they put the census data and stuff on, we built a giant bulletin board and sent it to the Deerfield Fair, and we got a blue ribbon, which I'm happy about because the number of pies I've submitted over the years to try to get a ribbon, not a sniff of a ribbon, so I've got to get the kids to do the work for me. But anyway, we're doing a lot of primary source stuff, and I thought you might be interested. Also, as part of our grant that got us the Ancestry Classroom membership, we also have a membership in newspapers.com, which lets us look at old newspapers online. And so we're going to be using that in the next few units. So, anyway.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very cool. Very cool.
Executive board report. There was an SAU meeting. I was not at it. Somebody else want to tell me what happened?
Was there more about the principal's report? Are we moving on to the?
What's that?
Oh, that wasn't the principal report. That was different. That was the staff report. Gotcha. My apologies.
We had our SAU meeting, public hearing for the budget, and the budget was moved or passed by the SAU board, and moved on to the county budget.
Really?
We also had a great presentation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We had a great presentation about Lucy.
Yeah, adverse childhood experience syndrome and trauma-informed teaching and learning. And interestingly enough, also the secondary stressors that teachers, the secondary trauma that teachers hold and experience from dealing with their students that have experienced trauma. So it was a good presentation.
There was discussion about the calendar and synchronizing among our SAU a little bit more than we are currently, as a way of saving, as a way of pooling resources and saving time and money.
Well, yeah, and a lot of interest in collaborating.
And allowing more collaboration.
I mean, I guess that comes under pooling resources, but.
Very. Principal's report.
All right, I guess I will open up with responding to some of the comments that were made this evening. I want to thank the parents that stayed. I appreciate you being here to hear what administration and the school, our perspective, where we're coming from. So I really appreciate that you stayed for this part of the meeting. I know your time is valuable. So it's understood that there's some confusion between Alma and Google Classroom. Parents are feeling pretty frustrated by the probation and the homework policy. Mr. Grieve and I have worked with some of the middle school staff to get a better understanding of what could possibly be going on. So just for some clarification points, I would like to say that it's upsetting to hear that a parent say that administration refuses basically to work with parents, because I had one parent approach me, only one. Not one other parent approached me, and I was actually cornered in the vestibule of the school and put right on the spot. And I had no idea it was coming, and it was a very accusatory approach. And Mr. Grieve may have received a few emails over the course of time from frustrated parents, but we certainly are willing to take a look at what's going on, what's working, what's not working. But I would really like you to hear from the school side some clarifying points. This particular probation period was the second probation period of the year. The first probation, there were not many summatives, so very few teachers had summatives in by the first probation period. So this second probation period, there were more summatives put in, and that there were more students who did not complete their summatives or pass in their summatives, or were not able to reassess on their summatives because they had not completed their formative assignments. For clarification, also, our probation numbers, there's a misunderstanding out in the community that it was based on 7th grade only. The probation numbers are 38, 39, were based on the entire middle school, which is 152 students. So there's some information out there that it was 2/3 of the middle school class, and in fact it is not. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified for the board. Remember, the students are on probation because they have received a 1 or a 2 on their summative. This excludes students who we know that is the best that they can do. It also is there also is an opportunity if students do reassess, that 1 or 2 can be overridden in Alma to take them off of any opportunity to be on, or any chance that they would get on probation. Mr. Grieve does go around and speak to every single advisor and every single teacher with the list. He can speak to that a little better than I can.
Yeah, so essentially when the teachers submit their probation, it's a spreadsheet. So it gets dumped into one spreadsheet. Some students will have 4 subject areas where they have probation, some will have 2. Obviously you need 2 to get on probation. If there's any kind of question as to why a student will be on there, I check in with the teachers, I check in with the case managers, as Ms. Withy said, just to double check everything, because there's no worse feeling than sending out a letter and then having to come back and say, nope, that was our fault, after a parent has already spoken to their kids, possibly even punished their kids. So it's not to say it hasn't happened in the past. There has been 1 or 2 times where it was my fault. I read the spreadsheet wrong. And so after that point, that's when I started going ahead and checking everything. So I learned from my mistake, and that was several years ago. And again, I spend on that Wednesday or Tuesday into Wednesday, I spend a big chunk of my day going around, and it's all done at once, but it's in between. So I'm going around checking in, finding out when teachers have free time, etc., and meeting with them to make sure everything is legit.
Also, just to give you the history from, I just came into this last year, but when I came into it, the DCS probation procedures were developed with administration, teacher, school board, parent feedback, based on the unique needs of the competency-based education, the competency-based grading system that is here at Deerfield Community School. So I just want to remind people that this wasn't just an administration decision. A lot of people put a lot of thought into how can we How can we put forward a probation policy that were procedures that make sense, that support the teachers in the work that they're trying to do, that get kids to do the work that they're supposed to be doing. Brian and I took a look at some of the probation policies in other districts. There's every district in the area does have some sort of probation policy or procedure in place with some accountability measures for students. And just to drill in a little bit more, our formative assignments are assignments that are done as classwork or homework, and these procedures were also developed by administration and teachers and with school board feedback. Formative assessments or assignments are not graded, and so there was a big discussion about needing to have some sort of accountability system in place for students that are not doing their classwork or their homework, and then taking their summative and and if they pass it with a 3 or they get a 3 or 4, then they're good to go. But if the students are not doing their assignments in class or at home, and they are taking the summative and receiving a 1 or a 2, the opportunity to when you haven't done the work, or as I've heard some people say, you haven't put the practice into the game, why should you be able to play in the game? So you haven't done the work leading up to the summative. You got a 1 or a 2 on the summative. You don't have an opportunity to reassess because you did not do your formative work leading up to that. As a reminder, homework is about 10 minutes per grade level. That is standard in any school I've ever been in, any district I've ever worked for. So we're looking at, in middle school, anywhere from 60 to 80 minutes a night for homework. Mr. Grieve and I did speak to the teachers about what kinds of homework is being assigned to students.
For instance, in 6th grade math, they use the Eureka workbook. Mr. St. Germain showed me tonight's homework. It's 2 questions. He said that the average kid should be able to finish that homework in 10 to 20 minutes. And also that they're given time in class to start that homework, to ask any questions, clarifying questions, etc. Anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Mr. Dudley just gave an assignment the other night. It was 11 questions. And he gave 15 minutes of his class time to start that assignment. And if kids didn't finish it, then they have to do it for homework. Mr. Dudley does not sit there and, he's available to go around, but if a child is fooling around or goofing around, he sees it as it's on them. He's going to redirect them, but he's also, he's going to go over to those kids who are raising their hand, who have questions about it, clarifying questions.
I'm sorry, nope.
And for teachers like Mr. Flad, Ms. Hughes, Science and Social Studies, any given projects, they have numerous days. Like Mr. Flad is not usually given an entire week, so 250 minutes of class time to work on a project. For instance, that project that these students did on their ancestors. So that was 250 minutes of class time given to work on a project. For students to say they don't have any time to do their work is another valid statement.
Along those lines, several teachers don't necessarily assign homework. It's classwork that might be unfinished that they have to bring home for homework. Several teachers told me that. Some teachers do have specific things assigned, for sure. The foreign language program, she does have specific things that are assigned so the kids, she knows that the kids are practicing and there's a log. And I would also like to have a clarifying point that I have sat in math classes where the teacher does teach, maybe does go over the homework from the night before, teaches the lesson of the day, gives student their work for the day, and then goes over the homework for the evening. There is no teacher is not teaching the lesson to teach the kids to bring that home. So kids who are saying that are not being truthful with their parents regarding the lesson is being taught in class. They're not just being here to do this for homework. If they're not teaching themselves, maybe they have to reteach themselves, but certainly the lesson is done on the assignment that is being sent home for homework, just as a clarification. I will go over to the Google Slides now. I have 2 other things to go over, and then I've got 2 pages of principal updates. So, hold tight. All right. Mr. Grieve and I
Did get some feedback from the parent-teacher conferences that there are a lot of parents it's challenging to figure out, okay, we have Alma, we have Google Classroom, we have Remind, can we just have one program, can we just have one system? I have not been in a school, again, not been in a district, including my own children's district, and now that's 2 with Hooksett and Derry, that there is not some sort of student information system and some sort of program that teachers are using to upload student assignments, whether that's Google Classroom, Turnitin.com, there's lots of different programs out there. Seesaw, I've heard, is a program that students use where assignments are posted, so, and parents have to access that. So to drill down to one system, at this point there is not one system that does all of that work, from homework, from assignments, to grading programs, to keeping track of attendance, to keeping track of student information, that type of thing. So in Alma, as you know, it's a student information system, and this is the grade book. This is where teachers have their grades. I have a mock-up of the student that I'll actually show you on Alma, so we can drill into that a little bit. As you know, missings are assignments that have either not been turned in, or they are assignments that have been given back to the classroom. Mr. Grieve and I did speak with the entire middle school team to talk about why are kids saying things like, I get handed it back, it's not correct, I got 2 wrong and I have to redo it. From what the teachers are telling me, the assignments that students are turning in either from Google Classroom or a hard copy are assignments that are not complete. It is not an assignment that needs to be corrected, it is an assignment that is not complete. And by complete, I mean the assignment was to write 3 paragraphs and they wrote 1 sentence and turned it in. Or give complete sentences for your answers and they wrote 1-word answers. Or show your math work, don't just give me the answers, and they just showed their math work. Not reading the directions correctly, or it just was not turned in. So when teachers receive an assignment, it is true if the assignment is not complete, it is returned to the student and it is listed in Alma as a missing. And then the assignment is, if it is returned, then the teacher goes in and makes a note of when it was turned back in. I don't know if that's a system that we can change or update. We're really tied to Alma in terms of what we can do with them. Candy, can you attest to that? Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
It seems like there should just be like an out for correction status. Like, how hard would it be for Alma to put an out for correction status?
We've talked to Alma on many occasions about this, and they will not operate in that system.
It's
frustrating, and the teachers would love it. And the teachers have asked from day one when we started using Alma, where is the incomplete button? And we were told from Alma that it's not an option.
And we were told also that incomplete did not match philosophically with competency-based education. So they try to make a note of it in Alma, but these are all the discussions that have taken place. They've been rich discussions, but you hit a wall and you're just like, okay, what else can we do?
Right, and that's when we require teachers to make notes saying, as Ms. Withy just said, that you have handed back, corrections need to be made. 6th grade teachers are even writing on the actual assignments, hard copies. This is what needs to be done, circling things, asking for more information, things of that nature.
So, just for my own clarification, so young Zach in the classroom has 10 math problems, gets 8 of them correct, 2 of them incorrect, turns it in, doesn't know they're incorrect, obviously, the teacher reviews it, finds 2 incorrect. Is that assignment being marked as missing?
That assignment is being marked as complete.
If little Zach only puts the answers and he was told to show the work, then that is not a complete assignment and it gets returned to you to show your math work.
So it's not for corrections necessarily, it's for
completion.
And a teacher can have an idea, if you only get 2 out of 10 wrong, the teacher has a pretty good idea that you know the material, that you just maybe made a quick mistake. You know, you can go back and see your work and say, oh, you know, he didn't carry the 2 or whatever. So he's not handing that back at all.
Again, teacher does put a note in Alma. The people who have been able to drill down in Alma have been able to see this. We did have several parents yesterday stop at the Alma station that we had set up for parent-teacher conferences and had no idea that if you click this and it shows you this, hadn't taken the time to drill down enough into Alma to find out how much information you really can get from Alma. Remember that Alma is the grading system. Google Classroom, I'll talk about in a few minutes, is the assignment portal. So it's two different things. When advisors are finding if a student has 4 or more missings, they're pulling that information off of Alma, not off of Google Classroom. They run reports off of Alma on students who are missing things, and I'll be able to show you in a few minutes I'm sure you know if you've seen Zach, maybe not because you don't have your students aren't in middle school yet. So this is really more of a middle school thing. K to 5 does not use this system like middle school does. And I guess to end on our Alma slide, students who have until the summative to complete any formatives that are missing to avoid being on probation. Literally, sometimes that could be up to 2 weeks. Many students get the assignment returned, they complete what they needed to complete, and they hand it right back in. But several students put it in their binder, and it gets lost, and it turns into I handed that in, and then the teacher is in trouble because the parent is saying he handed it in, and lo and behold, they find it in the binder. So we're just constantly working through this system to try to make it as fair as possible for both teachers to be able to hold students accountable and for students to do the work that they need to do. This is their job. They're in school. Okay, so now Google Classroom, that is the other portal that's used. This is where the student assignment is uploaded. Oftentimes parents get the Remind app where it says to them, check Google Classroom for further information. Many parents don't have access to Google Classroom unless they've requested access, so they have to go through their student to get access into Google Classroom. Google Classroom is being used all the way down in 2nd grade, but not like middle school is using Google Classroom. Almost every assignment in ELA, lots of assignments, science use Google Classroom a lot. Google Classroom the teachers take a lot of time to provide feedback on Google Classroom. And somebody had said earlier, I think it was Mr. Berger who mentioned, the data dump that these teachers have to do. They have to go into Alma, they have to run this, but they don't know it, they have to respond to it, reply in Google Classroom. It's a lot, but they are doing it because these are the systems that we have in place. If a student does turn in an incomplete assignment, the assignment will be returned and it will be marked in Alma as a missing. And this is the place to go to find missing. So I added this slide very late in the game. After parent-teacher conferences, several teachers, specifically in 6th grade, came and said that when they asked the students, where do you go to find your missings, they said, Alma, because that's where their missings are graded. But what teachers are trying to get the 6th graders specifically to know is that your missings that you have to complete are in Google Classroom. That's where you find your missings you have to complete. So there's going to be some clarification with the 6th grade team with their 6th graders. The 6th grade team takes a lot of time at the beginning of the year to navigate through these systems with the kids, navigate their planner, work on executive functioning skills. All these things are very important as they're making that huge transition from 5th grade to 6th grade. And the parents are making that big transition as well. Again, I just want to reiterate, if something is returned in Google Classroom, it is considered a missing. It is returned for, it's not returned for corrections, it's returned for completion. So again, they're supposed to write 3 paragraphs, they wrote a sentence. They're supposed to show their math work, they didn't show their work. So those are being returned. Any questions about that? So what is, we hear a lot of people are saying this is the teacher's fault. That this is the teacher's fault. And the kids are coming home saying, oh, they're blaming us, it's our fault. I hope that we can move past this to realize that there really are a lot of supports in place. Weekly, students are given time to complete their formatives, either their classwork or their homework. In 6th grade, they have 2 or 3 20-minute learning labs a week. They can also use their flex time where teachers are available to help them with any formative assignments that they need to work on or summatives. 7th and 8th grade have 2 15-minute learning labs built in. That came from student feedback last year that they were feeling they were drowning and they just didn't feel like they had enough time to get their things done. So,
and the students pick that learning lab. So for instance, it's roughly a 4 to 5 week rotation. So on week 4 of the week, they go in, they choose what teacher they would like to spend their next 4 to 5 weeks with. It's not cemented, so if I choose to be with science and I have a math test coming up, I can walk down the hallway and talk to Mr. Dudley. So, but the idea is that we know where the students are. If I need it for dismissal or whatever, I can pull up a spreadsheet showing where they are. So it's not cemented, but it's a holding pattern where kids can be working. So, and again, it's student choice, unless the teachers feel like, no, that student really doesn't need to be with that teacher just because I like them. They really need to be with me because they have not passed in a summative in the last 2 months, per se.
teachers offer support during lunch and then also before and after school. I walked out of the building the other day on Monday with 2 students. I said, hey, what are you guys still doing here? They said, oh, we stayed after school for math to get some homework help. So teachers will stay after school to support students. And also, as Mr. Grieve had mentioned, time is given in class many times to start their homework. Teachers wandering around trying to get them to troubleshoot anything that they need to, any questions that they have. And teachers are giving students entire class periods to work on their summative assignments. We provide planners for every 6th to 8th grade student, and as I mentioned, time is often spent, a lot of time in the beginning of the year for 6th grade, teaching them how to navigate the systems of Google Classroom and Alma. And by 7th grade, many of these students are competent in how to use both of these systems. And if they're not, let us know, because we'll make sure that we get them competent. Whether they just don't want to use the two systems, they don't want to do, I don't know what it is, but we would be glad to work with them if parents are saying they don't understand Alma, they don't understand Google Classroom.
And that's pretty much, one of the reasons we set up that station yesterday, to get paperwork signed, but also to allow the opportunity to play and dig into. It's like any other social media. You have to play with things, or you have to learn how to use the tool. It's easy to just go in and not understand it and just kind of give up on it. So we're welcome any parent to come in and set some time and sit down with Brooke, sit down with Candy, or even the teacher, if given the opportunity.
Candy has met with several parents who have said, I can't figure it, I can't get on. Come on in, sit with me, I'll navigate. Just press the green button, just press it. She's helped a lot of parents to get started and figure out the ins and outs of Alma. Just as a reminder, homework directly goes, or formative assignments directly go into our habits of learning, where we're encouraging students to strive for accuracy and personal best, coming to class prepared, participating ready to learn, using available resources. I'm sorry that that's cut off. Ask to help if they're unsure. Show all their work, we check it for accuracy, make corrections and improvements as needed. These are habits of learning that this school board approved for our school. A lot of work went into before my time. That's why I said I'm so glad to come when I did, because all of this was done before I got here, and it is a ton of work. In the other habits of learning that formative assignments feed into is prioritizing, having a system to track your assignments, manage your academic schedule, consistently complete and turn assignments in on time. These habits of learning are reported out on report cards. In the middle school, the advisories work together to go through every single student and what are you seeing, what are you seeing, what are you seeing, and report out on their habits of learning. And as a reminder, the Remind app was put in place because there was parent feedback several years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, again, before my time, saying that there was a lack of communication, and so the Remind app was brought on board, and now parents are saying there's too much communication. So
The only thing I can say about the Remind app is that parents do have the option to opt out. They don't have to sign up for the Remind app. This app is also, it is for parents only, it's not for students. And it's an opportunity for teachers to communicate with parents what some of the assignments are. It might be as simple as math sheet tonight, numbers 1 through 15, 17, and 22, or they might say check with the classroom for further information. Candy helped me do a mock-up of a student. I went over this with Patty on Friday during leadership to show her when I started to get wind of parents being very frustrated with Alma. I didn't know what a middle school parent was seeing when they got onto Alma. So I asked Candy to do a mock-up of a student. She was able to do a student in 7th grade. So when you log on to your Alma as a middle school parent or student, the first thing you see is the events of this week. This is a calendar that is general for the entire school. So you can see that on the weekends there's a non-school day. Tuesday was a parent-teacher conference day. And one of the things that was put in place was an actual calendar. So over here on the far left-hand side is there's little widgets that you can click. There's a calendar widget. When you, I'm making that word up. There's a widget. Works.
It's a real word.
It could possibly be like a dongle. This is a calendar for the entire school year. So it's similar to our school calendar that is put out. However, this one specifically, based on parent feedback, they asked if we could put in when the middle school probation would be. So Mr. Grieve and
the middle school team, we sat down to map out with their feedback, given when their summatives are. Again, we didn't start probation until the beginning of October because it takes those few weeks to come up with your first summative. So this year we have 11 probation periods. We count for holidays and things of that nature. So all that information is available to any parent.
Every parent can see this calendar, not just middle school.
Just to refresh my memory, if the student ends up on probation, are they on for a specific amount of time?
They're on for 5 days.
Yeah.
So the parents get notified and the students get notified on a Wednesday. So for instance, this current one, teacher submitted on the 22nd. I double checked everything on the 23rd. Unfortunately, Candy spends her time typing up all the letters on my behalf and sending those all out. While she's doing that, I'm going around to all the students and informing them that they're on probation. Probation then starts on the Thursday. Unfortunately, I can't take off the Saturday or Sunday, so you'll see it looks like it's 7, but there's no way to take those days off. They can do whatever they want on the weekends. So they're on from Thursday through the following Wednesday. So including they can't participate on a Wednesday activity. So if you have a game on Wednesday, you can't play, or if you are in the play or you are part of STEM lab or robotics.
So if a student was on probation, say, so Wednesday he's on probation, and it's a couple of real quick things, right? That could be potentially corrected, say overnight, if young Zach buckled down and just did what they were supposed to do.
Once you're on probation, you're on for the 5 days.
Okay,
So because at that point the assessments are over, they've been given their 10 days to reassess. So young Zach got his you got one on your test. You say you had all your homeworks in, right? Or all your class or all your formulas were in. You get your test back. You have a 1 or a 2. Teacher can tell, all right, he came in and slacked off, or they already know that you're going to get a 1 or 2 because you've already tried and you're busting your butt. You're raising your hand and asking questions. You then have 10 days to meet with the teacher and reassess. 10 school days. So, and at that point, that's when kids are being put on. So they're given all their upfront time to get all their work done. They take the test. They're then given another 10 days to get
So any students that are on probation right now would have known the beginning of October, beginning of October basically, that this was potentially coming.
Absolutely. And there's oftentimes I go around and tell the students, hey, your teacher already told me. During advisory, we are constantly telling kids, you're in jeopardy of.
So it's not sneaking up on the kids?
Absolutely not. And the kids all know these dates.
So that, just based on the feedback that the folks talking there and that, and you guys have a thorough system, because the parents are the ones who are getting miscommunication here or are not getting the full message in terms of, oh, hey, you're coming up on probation, or this. I think that is what we were kind of hearing, is like that they don't understand, like it's a communication. I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault. That's what I was hearing.
As the advisors, we're sending out those information about the 4 or more missing. If a parent's getting that on a weekly basis that their child is missing 4 or more,
right.
There's a good chance your child's going to be on probation. Like it shouldn't be a surprise because they're not doing the work in order to
Can that
take
get
the time.
added to that letter that you have 4 or more missings and it's likely you're going to be on probation?
So the letter goes when you're on probation.
No, the 4 or more missings is a weekly thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah.
It's
not a guarantee because
I know,
there's those outliers that can
I'm
just take a
thinking
test
about
and pass.
how do we give an explanation and a warning shot and an understanding to parents who clearly had frustrations that this is how the system works.
So from what I was hearing, I think and I might be wrong, what I think is happening is that parents are saying to their student, you've got 4 more missing assignments, and the student is saying, I turned that in, I this, that, and I brushed my teeth, I know what this is. They're just muddling up they would not have 4 more missings if they did not have 4 more missings.
Right. So that's the crux of what needs to get clear. And how we do that, how you guys do that.
And as Ms. Whitley said, only 1 parent has come forward to
Only
speak.
1.
And we may ask the teachers how many parents have come to talk to them or how many have they reached out. Almost none.
But I hear you. We had a bunch of people.
Yeah, clearly there's frustration.
Yes,
absolutely.
And, we find you guys really approachable. Some people may be intimidated.
That could be.
There is that as well. So there could be. I think that any kind of a communication increase in communication that explains this. I'm sorry they didn't stay for this.
Should have done this right after this.
We should have.
I have a couple questions. One is the idea. So I understand that I like hearing that there's this kind of warning, and maybe putting the word warning or something in this initial letter that's 10 days out would be a way of putting it in bright red ink. I don't know what's going to make it, but that's being missed. That message is being missed, and so
I'm happy, Mr. Mayor, will be happy to relook at the letter.
Absolutely.
something like that. And I think so that's.
Then you build in a period about, hey, it's coming, so that when it hits, it's like, it's coming. I got the letter.
Right.
But the corollary to that is that, okay, so a student knows that that it's coming, and the parent knows that it's coming. What are the routes? And I hear there's plenty of time during the day, it sounds like. And it sounds like there's support for students who want to take that support. But it sounds like there's also latitude, and part of the deal with competency-based education is that we're trying to put more ownership on the students to recognize where they are, recognize where they need to go, and make those decisions. But I have 9th graders who still can't prioritize and actually, demonstrate executive functioning like I would hope that they can. So putting this sort of choice, and I guess this is more of a question, you know this better than I do, and I wonder whether creating more structures so that during the flex time or during the time that you're providing is great for you, but if a student would rather socialize or whatever, then they might do that, and then they're so I don't know what the balance is between making the decisions for them, because we recognize that they're not developed in their prefrontal cortex to the point where we would like them to be when they're in 6th grade, but also making sure that we have that time during the day. But then at the other end of it, we had a parent who spoke to the feeling that he wasn't able to support at home a student who wanted to do the work and wanted to figure it out, but he didn't feel like he understood or was comfortable with the math to be able to provide that support. So that would be a piece that I want to make sure that the time is there during the day, and the support for a student to be able to, whether they want to, that's a difficult question, obviously, and I don't want it to get to the point of detention, because that's kind of passé now, but at the same time, if they're not doing it, that's something that we've talked about as well.
Right, and
and
to
I
kind
don't
of
know
build
what-
on that, I know there was a comment made about recess being taken away.
Mhm.
We are not taking recess
Never.
away.
Never.
The only time is the built-in flex time for sixth graders. That is an additional time on Fridays in addition to the recess. So 7th and 8th graders go out for recess for 10 to 12 minutes. 6th grade's out there for a little bit longer, around 15, sometimes 20, depending on the weather, obviously. But unless there's a severe discipline issue, we are not taking away recess for academic time.
And Mr. Verville's comment about the like one or two kids doing that, that's not the first time I've heard that.
It's not one or two kids.
Okay. But
Just to be clear.
there are, I hear you, there are, but
Don't say it's one or two
there are
kids.
kids that deserve to get outside, who, and if the reaction is, okay, there's 10 of you that are being gremlins, the other 30.
And that's what, you have to train them in a way to learn the system, and that's what they transitioned to this week. Mr. Flight actually just sent me the template of the letter that is going home to
I know,
parents.
I said never, and I said I should take that back, because he did, Mr. Flood did speak to us about, and Mrs. Gordon, they were coming in today, and something went, and we've been complimenting them up to this point, because they've been working and practicing coming into the school quietly, well, because they have the latest time, and all the students are still working,
And they have to pass the younger kids' rooms, and they have to come back, so.
and they have been doing very well, but today was an incident where the majority of students were not.
And so this team has decided to, as I mentioned, that kids who were acting out are the ones going to be that will lose the recess for discipline purposes.
I totally get that, if you have those kids, but
Yeah.
don't group punish, because 10 kids are different.
We did work with the middle school teachers as well about taking recess away for academic reasons, and that is across the board understood that does not happen. They do come up for lunch, and they can have lunch in the classroom, but recess is not taken for academic purposes. If you want me to go on and do a question?
Can I ask one other question,
Yeah,
or
go back, well,
throw an idea out? So I am in the middle of writing recommendation season right now, and every year I forget about this. I've got a whole other website that I have to go to do this thing. And so it sounds a little bit similar to this, where it's not a website I go to very often. I have to refigure it out. There's a tutorial. There's a thing made by our counseling office which has screenshots. It has, like, if you want to do this, kind of go through these steps. I wonder whether on our website and I know that we went through this, like, is it a middle school section of our website or not? But this sounds like a distinctly middle school situation, and so having a middle school section to our website, and then having a tutorial, a video, or do we have something like that which walks through? Okay.
She's working on it. She started working on it before Candy figured out how to give me a mock student.
Okay.
But she's taken some screenshots, and she's been working on figuring out how to do it.
And doing like a voiceover with it.
Okay.
We had that with Deb Beauvert
Okay.
when we had the MMS system, and so now, like I said, Brooke is working on it.
And I'm happy to upload my slides to the middle school just as reference.
Okay.
So if we just to go back, last week, that you can see that it's middle school probation is right there on the schedule, so that parents, when they open it up, know this is a probation period, and it ended on Wednesday, so by Thursday they're back on.
Is there, when you get to that 10-day window, is there something notifying that, like on the school calendar, obviously you said, middle school academic probation. Is there something so 10 days prior when the parents are logging in, you can see, hey, get your stuff together because probation is coming? Is there anything on the calendar that notifies that? Like, again, here's your warning.
No, we just have the dates of all the probations. So
Is it worth putting something on there that there's a warning date? Yeah, right. Maybe you don't put a week's worth, but you just put that 10 days.
I think that some students have up until that day to not get on probation. They have up until that day to get their summatives or their formatives on the 6th.
I'm just trying to, because it seems like the impression from the parents was that this probation's not gonna fund kids. It's like, oh, hey, you're on probation. And it most certainly from this side of the table doesn't seem that these probations are sneaking up on the kids. It seems like the kids are, or the parents aren't aware that it's coming. They're not looking ahead on the calendar. They're not fully engaged in understanding that, okay, you have X amount of time, So anything we can do to make it more visual for the families.
Many reminds us, because it's really the parents. It's the parents who are the ones who are getting surprised by this.
Like the kids, I suspect if you went and asked every kid that was on probation, hey, did you know you're going to be on probation? They probably can all look at you and go, yes, Mr. Reed, I knew I was probably going to be on probation.
Yeah, there's very few kids when I tell them on Wednesday that are actually surprised.
You're not, maybe get one or two. But I would say the bulk of it is no, Mr. Reed, I knew I was going to be on probation. Did your parents know you were going to be on probation? No, Mr. Reed, they didn't know I was going to be on probation. So, what I'm just getting at is things that, just those little bullet reminders. Hey, it's coming, so that the parents can then say to the kids, you want to play soccer, you need to, because I'm going to defend academics over anything else. But I most certainly feel like if we can help provide just another visual cue to say.
Yeah, I mean, I can go in here and try to figure out a way so it's not bombarded with
Hey, you don't have another 400
you guys have to pick a different color scheme. Everything's orange.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah,
they'll look the same to me, the colors.
But I was thinking the colorblind there for a second.
So just to wrap things up, like I said, I showed this to Patty. She thought it would be a great opportunity at the board meeting to show. You can see that the student is the overview. These are all the classes that the student is in. If I click on the subject, I can see the formatives. I can see the assignments up here. This was a summative assignment. This, my mock-up student is not yet competent in this area. If I click on, this is a speech bubble right here, or I mean a message bubble right here. You can either hover over it to see the message, or you can click on the assignment and you can see the competencies attached, feedback. That's what that speech bubble is, to say that the teacher has written something in the feedback section. This looks pretty good. Could you smush it into one slide? And then also Mr. Vlad has provided the actual, if I click on that, it will bring you to the document of what this project was.
That's all under that incredibly small little circle?
Yeah, well, the message is under the circle. The message says feedback, but if you want to see more about the assignment, click on that. So the formatives that are right here, if I go back.
I've never clicked on the little circle.
Did you click on the little circle?
I did not know you could click on that. How do you?
If I go into science, I can see, oh, I got some things here. Okay, so what's this? So this is the yellow triangle means that this was a missing assignment. It was handed back. It was given back into the classroom. It was, if you click on, and then there's, and this one is yellow without a message. This one is yellow with some feedback. So if you click on that, you can see the student, it was returned as an assignment because my mock-up student forgot to make a key for the producer's meal. And then you can see that the status is that it was received late, it was due, and then it also, here in this particular case, tells us what the next gen science standards are.
And this kind of goes back to how much work the teachers are doing. The 7th and 8th grade teams are doing this for over 100 kids on a weekly basis. The 6th grade, obviously, because they're only dealing with 6th grade, they have anywhere from, right now they're about 50 kids. So, but they're doing this for every single kid on a weekly basis. That's why we ask that they have Alma updated by Tuesday afternoon, because it's not reasonable for young Zach to hand in the homework and 100 kids to hand in the homework that night and have this updated the next day. It's just not feasible. Our teachers wouldn't have lives. They wouldn't be working here. So if we required that, yeah, Gigi.
Oh, do you have something you want to say, Gigi?
I just have some questions. Are most of the, and you may not know the answer to this, but are most of the parents or kids that feel challenged, are they 6th graders? Most of the kids we have more sixth graders on probation.
No, we have more seventh graders on probation, and we've been using this system. This is the second year for this system. So as we said yesterday, we had seventh grade parents who did not know how to use Alma, but they've had all of last year to use it.
Right.
So
is that a trend? It's a 2-year trend, but is that, well, I guess maybe
I would say seventh graders traditionally
Yeah.
have a higher probation rate just because of the given grade level. They're not new to middle school anymore. Sixth graders still have their blinders on, they're a little nervous, etc. Seventh grade, they're more used to it, but it's also when, oh wow, there's a girl over there. I didn't notice her for 8 years. Oh wow, I got a phone from my mom and dad for Christmas. Eighth graders, not so much because now they've done it for 2 years. They're looking to get to high school. They're realizing, wow, I need to get my act together, and we're pushing that high school piece to have them ready. So seventh grade is traditionally that year of, and goes back to why we created the 2 teams. It was a lull that seventh grade never had an identity. In a way, it does now, but in a way, it doesn't. So.
Do you know how many of the students were in seventh grade? You said there was 39 of 152. Do you know how many of that was seventh grade?
Around 28.
Okay, and the seventh grade class is
52, I think. 51,
So
52.
still over half.
yeah, so it really is more than half the seventh grade class was on probation.
Correct. And it wasn't just for 1 or 2. I mean, it wasn't just for 2. I would say the majority of the kids were on it for multiple subject areas.
So, like, have you just from like a 25,000 foot view looked at that, right? Because we heard frustration from, I think a lot of it was on the, sound like it's coming from the seventh grade side. Have you looked at that to say, are we missing something here, or we're not, or is there something that's just not getting connected? Because that seems like a really high percentage for that grade level to be there. So
it's hard to say because the 7th and 8th graders are combined in the same class, so you can't say it's curriculum. So I don't know if it's maturity.
yeah, is there a common denominator? Is there something that, like, okay, hey, this is where our disconnect is, but I mean, basically, you have 2 other grades making up 11 kids on probation. That sounds more like a number that you would probably expect, right? I mean, I think last year the numbers were relatively low all throughout the course of the year.
Mm-hmm. And we have our, like anything, we have a huge bump, but yeah, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint. I couldn't give you a good answer, I don't think. Okay. Why it's just that.
Because it's going to be 4 subject areas anyway.
It's 5 with world language.
No, what I'm saying, it's 4 assessments. You have to have 1 or 2 on.
2 subject areas.
Okay. 2 classes.
Right.
Yeah.
It used to be 1, and then we came back and we revised the policy to make it 2. Yep. So if it was 1,
Right.
you have
To the benefit of the student.
yeah, because everyone messes up once or twice, but I'd be on 2 subject areas.
I look at the numerical and all of these and try to figure out why.
I can come back to this after. Yeah, I have a couple of big.
Finish up.
Yeah.
The orange triangle, the Alma loves orange, I guess. This was a formative assignment that was not turned in. So that's been noted in so that would be a missing that was never turned in. And my mock student has 2 missings here in this class in particular. So when the advisors are running a report in Alma for 4 more missings, is picking up this information and giving them the list of kids, what they're missing is, what class it was in, and then advisors are then turning around and informing parents. The student has 4 more missing, and we look at the letter and consider putting in.
And then after the summative happens, the teacher goes back and A's all the missing assignments. So they're not. So you're not going to get hit for that letter of the 4 more missings again based off stuff from September. if that makes sense.
It doesn't go away, the list still shows.
Yeah,
the
like by the end of the
assignments.
year, as an advisor, when I print out a list, I have kids that are sometimes 12 to 15 pages long because they've all been NA'd out. Because they simply have not done any formative assessments all year.
That's what I was gonna ask, like, what does the repeat offender, like,
That's our focus this year, what are we doing for those repeat offenders?
yeah, do we have, is that something that Alma can you run an Alma, like, or can you run Alma reports?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's just like, ooh, oh yeah, look, this kid, since 6th grade, has been on probation this many times. But I would hope that.
Right, I have that on my spreadsheets.
What?
I have that on all my
Do you have to
spreadsheets.
figure that out by yourself?
Yes.
Who
Yeah.
has the admin dashboard? Candy? So you, the admin dashboard? You have one too? I wouldn't say pull up your admin dashboard right now, but you might wanna, there might be some Candy reports.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I was curious if you could run a report, that would be helpful, 'cause, I mean, my head wants to explode when I go in and out of work in that information database system,
I mean,
grade reporting system.
The parents are looking inside a grade book, right? So I mean, they're seeing stuff that they've never really seen before. They're seeing an infinite number of stuff that they wouldn't have seen before.
They're essentially going onto the teacher's desk and seeing what the teacher
They're
traditionally
opening up
would.
that red book and
Absolutely.
they're open and they're going.
Yep.
So, and they're getting a lot, and there's feedback in there. So I mean, it's not only are they seeing a number or a score, they're seeing an assignment.
And a piece of
what it is.
this looks different as any app would on your phone. So if a parent is only looking at Alma on their phone, they're not going to get this type of detail.
It's not mobile ready?
It is, but it's not. It's so much more difficult to, like, you can't hover over marks and things of that nature on with your phone. You obviously you need a mouse to do that. So that piece is not there. It's like it's like any app comparable to.
So
a
a parent
website.
did come in along those lines and sat in my office. I hooked her up on my Mac, and she's like, "Oh, I don't see this stuff on my phone." I'm like, "You what?" I didn't even think that was even part of the problem. So when you have that, I helped her navigate. She clicked away, and it's like, "Oh, now I did not have any idea all this information was available. Next time I'll use my computer." So that's just one check in the right box.
And again, this is just Alma. I mean, the parents can be going on to Google Classroom on a nightly basis,
Correct.
seeing they get the Remind app. All right, you have a science project. They can go on to their child's Google with them or without them. They can get the password from their child and go on and navigate that and see the comments, see the feedback, see the assignment. It takes time. I mean, we live in a crazy 24-hour data-driven environment. And this takes time to do.
Too much data is overwhelming. The best way to hide things is not to give the information or to give too much.
Right.
And
You can't win. You win.
you can't win either way, but I think the takeaways are we need to find some ways to communicate a warning to parents. Is kind of what I heard.
For probation.
Yeah.
When it comes to the missing, there's not much more we can do. We can't ask our teachers to do any more.
No, I'm not saying that, but like the language be added to
the 4 more missing
messages that
letter.
are already out. Like, this is what this means. If there's 4 or more missings, it means that it's very likely that your kid is not going to be playing basketball next year.
And the probation period starts.
Yeah, this is the last chance to get yourself in shape.
I will add also that several teachers have mentioned to me that the general email that goes out, they've added onto the email, if you want your child to stay after school someday this week, please let me know. I'm happy to do so. So
Is that email auto-generated, or is that manually made?
That's manually made by us as advisors. I mean, we have a template, but I mean, there's points where I sit there and I say, your child is missing 4 social studies assignments, 3, 2, whatever, and that's just me personally doing that. But sometimes I have a little bit more time in my day to do that. Sometimes I don't.
And a lot of this stuff was front-loaded with my teachers, but our 7th and 8th grade team works on a 2-year cycle. So last year they did all this work for what they worked on last year. This year is different, except for math. And so after this year, things might get a little smoother for them in terms of assignments that are already in there, bodies of evidence that they already can pull from. But it's been a lot of work, and I give them 100% credit for the time and effort that they put into this. They were very, yeah, go ahead, Nate.
I have a few. That is an incredible amount of work, and that as a teacher, that makes me kind of cringe inside to see how much work that they're doing, which is amazing, and I appreciate it. But at the same time, I wonder whether this is the best. And I'm sure, and it is. It sounds like now that you've explained it, it's a clear. The system makes sense. But and you also just said something a second ago that helped me kind of think about what part of the problem is. Not necessarily a problem, but the scenario that we made. We have made this structure where 7th and 8th grade is grouped together in most of their classes, and so the 7th grade students are being exposed to, in many cases, probably 8th grade expectations. Or a teacher is challenged with somehow personalizing or differentiating between 7th and 8th graders who are on the spectrum in their class of different developmental stages. And so that makes it an inherently difficult situation.
And again, I think that's one of the puzzle pieces why we see 7th graders having a higher number of probations.
Right.
Because they're coming from a three teacher team to now a 5, including world language, 5-person team. So, and they're being put into with kids who are a year older and obviously more mature socially and academically.
Right. But I guess maybe the bigger question, or perhaps a way to and this is not going to happen right now, or even in this year, in the school year, but to think about. I feel like, at least in my school, or at least in my department, as we're talking about this, the idea of competency education is that what we're seeing is that even those students who are not necessarily ready to whatever it is to finish and maybe the incomplete homework assignments are just a matter of not sitting down and finishing it. But if you as a student don't really understand what's happening, then just throwing something on the piece of paper is not really gonna solve anything. And that becomes perhaps for some students this struggle where I don't really get it, so do I just throw stuff down just to not, versus I feel like this idea of revisiting ideas and looking at it from a competency perspective may allow different students to the curriculum to be more personalized, where even in a group of 7th and 8th grade students, you have more flexibility to, and I'm sure these discussions are happening, but I wonder whether sticking every student, kind of having these expectations for every student, is maybe not as close to this competency approach as it could be, and maybe there's a way of working a little bit more flexibility or personalization. And again, I don't want to make more work for the teachers, but it seems like to approach this to change that kind of perspective, or to think about grouping students differently, where you've got students who need to be working on the same competencies. I just wonder whether it's a bigger conversation that is not going to be solved or even dealt with right now, but is this not, if we think about changing our mindset or approaching it a little bit differently, could we, from a larger sense, could we clear up any of this? I don't know. That was a big sort of.
We're getting lost in philosophy here.
Yeah, it's hard to follow.
Can I ask one more question? And I didn't think I'd say this a couple of years ago, but would the idea, because we've been through this, talking about this for a couple of years, would the idea of grades counting? You said earlier on that grades don't count, so therefore we have all this stuff. Should we come back to this conversation of grades counting? And would that be a proposal that the administration, or the teachers would want to propose?
Formatives counting?
I'm sorry, that is what I mean. The homework counting. That's what it was. It was the homework counting. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. I'm not saying right now, but I'm saying that a couple of years ago we had this conversation. We said no. If we've tried this for 2 years, if it's just making more work, if we revisit that idea, would that solve it? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas that perhaps administration want to consider. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'm not done my update. Should I?
Bring it.
Movie friends of water.
Do you need to go get a drink?
Well, I guess I should say it'll be quick, but it's not. 2 pages, okay. I'll go through it quickly. The class of the week. Visits this past month. I was able to visit Miss Dalrymple and Mrs. Cook, and Brian was able to visit Mrs. McManus and Miss Smith. Our cross-country soccer and volleyball seasons have come to an end, and basketball tryouts are tomorrow and Friday. Captain Dubiansky visited DCS during Fire Prevention Week, spent a good amount of time in the cafeteria with the kids, and did some classroom presentations. The kids loved it. First grade took a field trip to Sweet Trail in Durham on October 9th. We had our second all-school meeting on October 10th. The 7th graders hosted, and they did an awesome job. And we did, for the whole school group activity, we did My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. And for days, we felt muscles that we had never felt before by going up and down, up and down, up and down. Climbing the stairs was not fun that day. We've done our health screenings throughout the month this month. Ms. Heisey, and we've had our several volunteers have come in, and we've also had our vision screenings throughout this month. We had a very successful teacher workshop day on October 11th. Teachers rotated throughout the course of the day for social emotional learning, the 4 season social studies with the new curriculum that was hopefully going to be approved in December or January. And teachers also spent some time in the STEAM lab with Brooke and Beth, our new library media specialist. The middle school visited with Chris Motika in the afternoon to drill down into their problem of practice that they've been working on this year. Our 2nd graders took a field trip to Plymouth Plantation, their annual field trip, and our 4th graders took their field trip to Strawberry Bank. Both of those happened on October 16th. We welcomed a new paraprofessional in the middle school. Stephanie Vire joined us this back in the middle of October. As was reported, we did go to the principal's administration, attended the SAU leadership in Epsom on October 16th, special ed coordinators, everybody that's administration, and we talked about social emotional learning, and that same presentation was given to the executive board for the most part. We had a very successful Red Ribbon Week, October 21st to the 25th. Unfortunately, our Tiger Tiger Assembly and our parent workshop was canceled due to illness of a cast member, and we have rescheduled for January for both the assembly and for the parent workshop in the evening. There's a staff craft fair happened on Saturday, October 26th, and the proceeds benefited the 8th grade trip to New York City. We had a parent information night on Sargent Center on October 28th. Our 1st graders took another field trip to Squam Lake Science Center, and our 3rd graders took a wonderful field trip to Great Bay Discovery Center and saw Mrs. Heckman while they were there. Our parent-teacher conferences went very well. Teachers gave me feedback today during our staff meeting. They were very thankful to have gotten their conferences done all in one day. And listening to some of the feedback from the public comments today, teachers did not realize how exhausting parent-teacher conferences were the way they were doing them, having to stay after school, before school, during their planning blocks, during lunchtime, spread out over 8 to 10 days to make room for all of their parents to come in. And we're very grateful to have that. Our K through 5 group did do 20-minute conferences. Our preschool was able to get their conferences done in one day. And our middle school they were 10-minute conferences. For the most part, the majority of parents were very happy. At first they weren't happy. There was only 10 minutes, but they were able to get done what they needed to get done in the 10 minutes. The middle school teachers felt overall that was enough time. And remember that the parent-teacher conferences at the middle school level are student-led, and so they had done a lot of preparation with the students during advisory to prepare for what are you going to say to your parents, how are you going to present this information.
And kind of the thing, There was several parents may come and say they only met half the team. The reason for that is,
It's going to have that, yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead. No, please
just
do.
because of how many, you can't get 100 parents in the building in the 7 hours that was provided. So they split it up between 3 teachers and 2 teachers. So, and so they tried to fit and accommodate as much as they could, given the parameters of what they look like.
And again, like Mr. Reeve just said, there were 100 students in middle school to meet with at the 7th and 8th grade level. Alma Start registration forms, we have about 269 completed or in the process. That is the registration forms that normally would go home as paper forms at the beginning of the school year. We are we have all those forms online on Alma right now, which is separate from Alma, but part of Alma. But Candy has been working diligently to try to get as many parents as possible. Yesterday during the Alma Start station for parent-teacher conferences, they had the whole lobby set up with tables and Chromebooks, and they were able to pull in about 20 people were able to start or complete their Alma Start. They got 31 accounts activated on the Alma platform, so we're just keep plugging away at trying to get as many people as we can. It's really important. This is emergency information that has to be updated, information for the nurse of whether you give your child permission to have some Tylenol during the course of a day. So there's some really important forms on there for parents to go in and give us permission to do things.
And it roughly takes 5 to 7 minutes per child to do, speaking from experience. So,
and Candy has, like I said, parents have called and said, I can't figure it out. She said, come in. That she has sat with several parents to get them up and running on Alma Start. And then one last thing is that we're trying to clean up the One Call Now system. Josh Berube over at the SAU he is aware that when a text message is sent out through our One Call Now system, emergency contacts are also being texted. So instead of just the primary contact. So he's working on fixing that, and hopefully it'll be cleaned up by tomorrow evening. Not that we're looking to use it for Friday. I do have a food service update. Do you want me to do that, Patty, or do you want me to save it? It's in the drive, okay. Meredith St. Ange put together a wonderful update on the lunch program from the ice cream, what she's been doing with ice cream, the hot items that she's added to the salad bar. So I think that I told her that I would most certainly share that. And just for a couple of mic updates, we do have an offsite notification system to take a look at that Mike has received. Also, Rhymes came out finally yesterday and hooked up the propane, so propane is all hooked up and ready to go. And anything else from Mike? I'm trying to remember if there's... he has the plow beds came in. We have the oil pumps have come in, and he's working with the folks that did the water heater. He's going to be working with them to install the oil pumps. And he does have the name of the basketball hoop gentleman. I did not check with him today to see if he called. I know. And we're working on a lost and found system. He's working on building something. Was that enough information for you, or do you want me to continue?
So much information. Thank you.
Okay, I can tell Mr. Dealey is not impressed by me right now.
I'm sorry about that.
No
One
offense.
thing I did want to ask is you were mentioning the fundraising, and I did have a couple of questions from community members in regards to the cost of the 6th grade sleepaway camp. How much more is it than it was at Ferry Beach?
About $100.
You're ballpark say $100.
I know that in the budget next year, you guys put in a line for us to subsidize part of it.
Correct.
I had a couple of people ask about it for this year.
It's also an additional day longer,
right?
And being at both places personally, that you get much more bang for your buck.
Yeah, I'm just they were costs focused, so I don't know if next time we want to maybe discuss whether or not we want to help them out this year, or if that's something the board would be open to. I don't know where we are budget wise, it's 400 and something, $450 or something.
Yeah, he's hoping to keep it around 430. Right, it's
That's hard for some folks.
absolutely. Especially if they have eighth graders.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And this is the first year we've actually done it's the first year we're doing fundraising
This is
well,
true.
beyond the Deerfield Fair. So PTO and parents have been really good about coming to us, and we had a voluntary meeting about that.
We met with the 7th and 8th grade to talk about fundraising, so there's a lot going on and it's a small pool to pull from, so they've tried to reach out to the outside community like Candia and do a restaurant thing and that type of stuff, so.
All right, curriculum review board, anything, Mr. Arsenal?
Nope.
Fiscal year 2021 budget?
Are we willing to take like a 5-minute?
I think we might want to consider tabling some of this agenda because we're going to be here forever.
The budget, obviously, we have to do. What would you want to do?
We could talk about the Concord students next time. We could table policies, except Cindy is here for the policies.
Could we let Cindy
Can we
do a quick thing and then she can go home?
Yeah, Cindy, tell us what you need.
So I have accomplished all of you. So the original policy is 12 years old. So I have taken the liberty of revising it. So on top, on top is the old one. This is what I'm proposing. So you can look at that. Some of the updates were real simple and were things such as, added sports that we now have, and modifying different things like divisions and that kind of stuff. So, sorry.
All right, we can.
So, I know you're not going to do anything about it, but I just.
Is there anything of substance that you want to point out other than this minor?
The biggest thing that probably will come up is the whole 7th and 8th graders cannot be cut issues, so I have changed that. I have proposed to change that, I should say.
So that they can be cut? Is that you?
Yes. So, historically in the past, that was not something that we aimed to do. What we're coming into now is too many for one team, not enough for two, and it's really, it's putting us in making some hard decisions.
So essentially, a student can walk on as an 8th grader never having played a sport, where
at some point they're trying to become competitive because it's not.
and the whole entire league, the Southeast League is a competitive league.
Right.
It's defined as a competitive league. It's not a rec league. It's not intramural. No, it's not even unified arts.
There's
It's not
like
a
programs
unified.
for that.
Correct.
And like I said, we haven't come upon that, but the way our numbers have been in the last 2 years, it's becoming an issue.
Next year we're trying to
Right.
class.
And, where we can offer B teams, we do, but the other teams in our league are not pulling back from that. It's just maybe because of their numbers are.
It's also the cost associated with it. You're adding another bus, you're adding more referees, things of that nature too.
It's not really fair, it doesn't seem like it would be fair to a competitive middle school team to know that they can't have. Yeah, the best possible teams.
This part of the back is totally new. So that part is, wasn't modified, it was added. So it just talks about the layer of things that, the addition of 5th graders has come up several times on different sports, and I feel very strongly with some of the sports that it's a safety issue. So I put that in there to, it's at the discretion of the athletic director and administration. Because I feel like sometimes we have to make that call, parents, think that way. Because if a grader has a strong athletic ability, they can do it, but they're size-wise and maturity-wise and social, all the different pieces just don't fit. So, some things I'm putting in writing that have always been understood before, but I feel like that has to be in writing.
Is there anything that needs to be voted as on this, or is this all?
I just received it today, so let me take a look at it, and we'll put it on the agenda for a second.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Cindy, for staying.
Now, can we go to the bathroom, please?
I'll be asleep over there.
You want to take a 5-minute recess?
I don't know how much more I've got in you guys, honestly. I'm over fever and I'm not good for it, so. Okay. We can keep going for a little bit. It's 3 hours.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, go. Thank you.
My eyes are starting to water.
That's good. If we could do a quick overview of the things that changed in the budget, answer any pressing questions, and then devote the next meeting entirely to the budget.
Sure.
The other things on the agenda can be, you can explain.
Can I make a request for an informational version of the budget for next meeting, or does it have to be a motion that's officially?
An informational version?
I'd be curious about if there are 2 teachers in here on line 8 or whatever it is, and I would be curious what would happen. It's line 12, and I'd be curious if that went down to 1, how that would play out through the rest of the budget in terms of amounts of benefits and whatever else, and what would happen to the bottom line if it went down to 1. While I'm bringing it up, I'd also be curious what would happen if we eliminated both of those, how that would change the bottom line. So if we can just have sort of informational, line 12. And also on top of that, I don't think the 8th bus came out for some reason. I think, or at least, I'd be happy to make a motion tonight to take out the 8th. But I thought we took out the 8th bus, but I thought I saw it still in here, if I'm reading it right. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel what line it was.
I want to say that the going rate for a teacher, if Amber budgeted it the same way she did in Pembroke, she's going to figure about $89,000 per teacher.
That's in total?
A mid-level teacher with an insurance plan.
That's including health and.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, it will vary depending on the person you actually hire, but she tries to do like a master's step 5
Okay.
for the family plan.
Okay. So essentially.
I'll have her do that for you.
Okay, but essentially, line 12, that increase of 121.8 is 2 teachers, so I could just cut that in half. They're both presumed to be at the same rate, master step 5.
Yeah.
So they are both, whatever that number is, cut in half.
You can't really use the increase in that line because there could be other teachers.
Oh, right, there's a different, you're right. I forgot about that because there's also the health teacher going up too. Okay, or wellness teacher, okay.
Mr. Zach, we are going to dedicate our next board meeting to our budget. We're just going to do a quick overview of what's changed this time, and not really eat into it.
So the yellow highlights are where Amber made some changes, and she also made new cheat sheet, which is going to be very helpful. So line 29, there were some ELL services added in. Those are required by law for our English language learners. Line 32, high school tuition, there was a change of 1 student, so up until this goes to the final version, we will keep making changes as we go. If we have updated information, we'll just keep it as updated as we can.
I think the student referral is now counted, by the way.
Yep. Oh, I didn't know that yet. That's, yes. I did send out another one, but I'll forget. The supply line went up just a little bit, as a request for the new ELL program to get a little bit of supplies for that. There's a change in special placements on line 140, which is special education. There was a change in special education equipment for some needs that we were just made aware of, but something to use by. Line 181, diagnostics, there was a change there, and that's the school psychologist services
So that's, remember, that's contracted through the SAU, so that line includes salary, benefits, everything, it's not just salary. Line 273. We added a note to be clear, for your district share, of the SAU budget, that the SAU budget actually only increased by 0.39%. And that the increase to Deerfield was due to the higher equalized valuation and the number of pupils. So that people understand that, we'll fill the page number in once we get the whole package. Let's just compare the district share what we have. 326 and 329, Amber pulled all the bills for propane and oil, and then added the shed for propane. 9348. Transfer the bus, change one bus to 3 buses. The high school, that you're saying does not take
The
up.
next line still says 8
yeah,
buses.
so it's 8.
Do I need to make that a motion to go down to 7?
No, I can just do it. I think you guys are all wanted that to happen. I can do it. And that is line 809. That's number 352 is the special education transportation that was updated to reflect student needs. 362, we were just missing $1 to keep the line open for the sabbatical line. And line 406, we just added $1 to keep that line open for police tuition. So those are the only changes. If you have, after you, I know you've had it for a little bit to digest, do you have any significant pieces of information that I could bring back for next time? I'll do see what it looks like with only one teacher and then with no teachers added.
I have another request. With the swing, there's a large change since last year's budget. There was I'll say this quickly, the big surplus, a lot of that was special ed, and now there's another big special ed increase. So we didn't use the money that we got from the voters last year in its entirety, and now we're asking for even more. Can we, and I know that and we say every year to the voters, we can't do anything about that, and we have it labeled as being not within can we have some sort of a presentation? Because I know that we all know, I think, the gist of this, but I don't know that the public is aware that essentially that all starts with a student's IEP, and that is a legal process, and in determining what supports a student needs, that it's not like somebody's sitting in a room picking a number out, but it's derived from this process. Can we get maybe just a snapshot of what that process is, and then how we get that number as a result?
Karen actually offers to come because she knew the curriculum swings and the special ed numbers, and I told her that I was glad you mentioned it.
That'd be pretty.
So we can talk about, we have a little summary of why there was a surplus last year and then why the numbers are in there for this year. There is one thing you can do about this that we've done in other districts is you have a special ed trust. You can fund that, you can keep it robust, and you could say right now, let's cut $200,000 out of that special ed section, and if we run short next year, we'll use the special ed trust.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, and then you could choose, if there's surplus this year, to put some more money in that. Because because of these swings, for instance, in Pembroke, it's potential to have much bigger swings, just there's 3 schools. We put these big numbers in and thought, okay, but we keep having surplus in special ed, so, it's for very different reasons, but let's try to balance this out a little, and we cut them last year, I think, $100,000. And then we got to the end of the year, and we didn't need to pull from trust because we had surplus in the budget.
So would that have to be on the warrant, like we do with the other trust fund transfers, to say if there's surplus, it would go into the special ed trust?
If you want to fund it more, but not, if you can just make a motion to cut special ed by $200,000.
Right.
Period.
But then next year that would be gone. That's because we would have taken from that surplus. So if we wanted to put more in, that would have to go onto the March warrant to replace it.
So you're running a bit of a risk, people would say. Because if they say yes to one and no to another, then you can deplete that fund.
Right.
And then the following year now you're back.
You have none.
You have nothing.
Yeah, you'd have to look
Right.
at what the balance is and then, you know,
Okay.
but it's an option if you wanna look at your trust and
Okay.
think about doing that.
Okay.
That presentation, maybe we want to go in front of it, but maybe see if they, or
Sure, yeah.
go from there.
Any other items that stood out that you wanna have more conversation or more information about before?
I think, everyone's taking a little
Alright, so is everybody comfortable tabling the Concord student support report?
Yes.
Yes. And this Concord A+.
Yes.
And the policy, except we already did the one. So informational items?
I just noted in my agenda that I had put information that we received from Concord High School. They had sent us the, summary of the new superintendent's, qualifications as well as the official notification. So if I get those things from Concord that are sent to the public, I will put them in, your drive so you can see them as well.
The principal of Concord High School was also recognized.
I have not seen anything about that.
Yeah,
I didn't receive anything from Concord though.
Yeah, how do we make this communication available to the public? Is it posted on our website or something like that?
It is not, but I'm happy to do that if you'd like. If the board wants that, I can.
I don't know. Does that make any sense or not?
The piece about the superintendent?
Or is it in the news?
Parents will get it. Parents of Concord High got it.
The parents of
It's
it.
about to them.
Okay. Okay.
With the principal, when they actually say something to the principal, I haven't gotten anything. But that would be.
But is the
Did Andrea, did you get anything?
I feel like I did, but maybe because I saw it on, did I see it on the news?
Yeah, it was
I
all
knew,
over the
so I
news.
don't
I
know
got
how.
a text saying check your email, but then I didn't get an email.
I did get that email. You're right, I got that, and it does come.
I didn't see anything that said.
does it make any sense to make it available to the public, Deerfield community,
Yeah, I mean, the
or
principal
not?
directly impacts our kids, so that should go out. The superintendent does, but it's a couple of times a week.
Right. So how do we go?
You get something about the
I've got to
principal?
contact them and find out what they sent out and ask.
Okay.
I've asked several times to get all communications and I think I've got one.
Patty's got a whole new team to talk to.
Yeah. Right. All right. Thank you.
All right, any other informational items? Public comments? Tina?
I'm sorry, I know you guys are tired, and I've already talked a lot. I want to say thank you to Mrs. Withy and Mr. Grieve for the clarification. That was incredibly helpful. I know you already did this at the beginning of the school year, and when you're sitting there in the room, it kind of like all comes at you. That was incredibly helpful. The conferences with the teachers the other day, even though it was only 10 minutes, that was helpful for me because I was able to say, why are they missing? Like, that was helpful. She explained it to me a little better, how to use Almo a little better. So thank you to both of you for that. The Remind app, only one of my child's teachers is using it. The other teachers are not. Is it required for the teachers to be using that?
Yeah.
Or
It could just be, oh, we can't comment, so.
Yeah,
You can talk to her.
Direct conversation.
You guys can talk to her after.
Yeah. And then I was also wondering, I know academics is the priority. Clearly it is in my house, it should be. But athletics is very motivating. If the coach, I don't even know if it's possible. Can the coaches be made aware when the student is in danger of being placed on probation? That way the coach could also be a person talking to the student saying, hey, I got this notice from your teacher or whoever it would come from. You're going to be not able to play if you don't get your work in, if you don't improve your grades. That should just be another way to motivate the students. I know it would motivate my son coming from a coach more than just coming from the teacher who tells him every single day to get his work in. Mom tells him every single day to get his work done. The coach telling him, he would be a lot more motivated. So that was just a thought. And then my last thought was, if you guys could consider helping the 6th grade class, it would be very much appreciated. Our only fundraiser was the fair booth, and it was decided, I guess, last year not to do it. The PTO wasn't aware of it, the 6th grade parents weren't aware of that until almost time for the fair. And we are struggling with finding other fundraising opportunities because there are so many 8th grade fundraisers that are already established, and we don't want to compete with them. We don't want to take away from them. But we also have this trip, which is now more expensive than it's ever been in the past. So if there is any money that you guys can shuffle around, find it for us, we would hugely appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, any other public comments?
I just wanted to let you guys know that, Delilah I received, she has 4 missing assignments, and I thought that meant she was being put on probation. I have punished her right away, and I didn't even realize, but the teachers are letting parents know, hey, your kid's not doing well. So I don't know if it's not all the teachers doing it, and I just got a good teacher that was staying on top of it, but I just looked through my emails to make sure it was what it was, and I was told Delilah had 4 missing assignments. I was not in the dark about it. It would be the only time that happened, but still, I was told.
All right, any other public comments? All right, we do need a non-public, right? For NHRSA 91-823 to C.
So moved.
Second.
Steve?
Yes.
Jack, yes. Jim, yes. Nate?
Yes.
All right, 9:15.
Thank you, guys.
These are the
Here we go, later.
cards.
You turned me off.
The guy handed out.
Oh, thank you.
Did you turn off the camera?
No, not yet. Oops, thank you.